There are 76 fully evolved grass types in Pokemon. Let's rank all of them right now in a competitive singles context. At the very bottom of the list is Wormadam, an unfortunate creature with absolutely nothing going for it. Wormadam has one of the worst type combinations you can get, Bug Grass, with a dreadful ×4 weakness to flying and fire. It is also weak to rock and ice, which is not very good. These are common types too. Wormadam doesn't really do anything. It has an okay special defense stat of 105, but how can you take advantage of that when you are weak to so many special attacks that are incredibly common? Wormadam is slow, it is frail thanks to a low base HP, and its move pool is rather limited. It has Quiver Dance, which is a good move. This is a more recent addition to its move set, but to use this as a Quiver Dance sweeper is ridiculous. It has a low special attack. After a Quiver Dance boost, you are still operating at a snail's pace. You only have 36 base speed, for goodness sake. I think I like this Pokemon, though. I feel bad for him. I like his little nose that peeks out. He looks sort of like a gnome creature. He's got flowers on him. Very beautiful, but not very powerful in battle at all. This Pokemon is regrettably not worth a damn. Up next is Calyrex. Yes, even though this is a Legendario, I would rank it very low in the Grass-type power rankings. Not a good Pokemon. Calyrex has the cursed Psychic Grass typing. ×4 bug weakness is never good. Weakness to Dark and Ghost is never good. Just a dreadful typing all around. Calyrex scarcely has much in the stats department to make up for this typing, with a 100 HP, which is alright, but everything else is base 80, which is just average and not anything to write home about. As far as Calyrex's move pool goes, there's very little going on here. It can do a Calm Mind stored power set, perhaps with agility and a weakness policy. This is the best thing it can come up with, but even this is going to be pretty limited, not very effective. Even in the lower tiers, this is not easy to set up with Calyrex. You have too many other shortcomings. Not to mention Calyrex's ability is Unnerve, which simply prevents the enemies from eating berries. Not a very exciting ability at all. This is a Pokemon that is nothing without its trusty horse. Many can say the same. Horses do enhance humans. A horse is much faster. To ride on a horse gives you many advantages. A human by itself has to walk much longer and is considered less powerful. This is a pretty realistic Pokemon in that sense, and an accurate representation and an artistic statement about our dependence on technology. By ourselves we are nothing. We must use horses and vehicles and stuff to enhance ourselves, and this is the folly of the human spirit. Up next is Cherrim, who is quite bad, but at least it's unique. Cherrim is a monograss type. It's a typing that can work depending on the Pokemon. Cherrim has the interesting ability Flower Gift, which grants it a bonus in the sun. In the sun, Cherrim blooms into a beautiful flower and grants itself a 1.5x attack and special defense boost. This also applies to its ally in doubles. In the singles context, though, it's just a self boost, of course. Pretty cool and unique effect that gives Cherrim a different visual design in the sun. A flower that blooms. I like it, but unfortunately Cherrim's stats are just so bad that even a boosted attack and special defense is not that amazing. Cherrim's move pool is alright. It has stuff like Solar Blade, which of course has sun synergy. Weather Ball, which works in the sun, but ultimately the guy's not even that fast with 85 speed. It's not the world's greatest physical attacker. And it requires the setup of setting sun on the field, which is adding to the inconsistency of it. Plenty of grass types just exert more offense without needing sun to be set up to become a flower. Just in their normal state, they're better. Cool Pokemon, but not very good competitively. Up next is Go-Goat, a creature with places to be. Go-Goat has a fun design. I like it. I'm not a hateful person. I tend to like the Pokemon, whether they're viable or not. There are some exceptions. Go-Goat, however, has significant shortcomings. It seems alright on the surface, monograss type, pretty good HP stat of 123, and such options as Bulk Up and Horn Leech for Grass Stab and Earthquake. It even has Milk Drink, which is a rare option in the Pokemon world, achieving sustenance from drinking milk. Go-Goat also has the solid ability Sap Sipper, which grants grass immunity and a bonus attack boost if struck by a grass move. However, Go-Goat is held back by its poor defense stat of only 62, its poor speed stat of only 68, and being a little bit too slow and frail to really ramp up with the boosts and start posing a threat. Grass is an alright defensive typing, it can be, but in the case of Go-Goat, I think just being a grass type has its shortcomings as a bulk-up sweeper like this. There's no doubt that Go-Goat is going somewhere, but he never stopped to ask himself where he's going or why, and I think that's his biggest failure as a Pokemon. Up next is Parasect. Parasect has a lot in common with Wormadam, very bad stats and the worst typing ever, Bug Grass. But Parasect has slightly more merit than Wormadam as a result of having some tools that are good. First of all, its ability Dry Skin at least offers a type immunity to water and chip healing in the rain, which is something. You are taking more damage from fire moves, but you're dying to fire moves in a single hit anyway. Even an Ember from Charmander will probably end your life instantly, so that's no detriment, that's already happening. The Dry Skin is a boon for Parasect. Parasect also has one of the most coveted moves in the game, Spore, which is a 100% accuracy and puts the target to sleep, and an outstanding move. So these two things are good. The problem is that Parasect, in every other regard, is absolutely atrocious. Its bulk is non-existent, its speed is only 30, which really puts a damper in the whole putting things to sleep plan. If the enemy is just going to outrun you and defeat you, then having Spore almost doesn't matter in many cases. Despite access to such a great move and a solid ability, Parasect really struggles to overcome these incredibly debilitating weaknesses, which is a shame. Up next is Sunflora, who is quite terrible. But you cannot say that Sunflora doesn't bring a positive energy to its existence. I mean, look at that smile, look at that beautiful, vibrant smile on Sunflora. It knows it's garbage, but it doesn't care, because there are more important things in life than battling. If you do force Sunflora against its will to battle on your Pokemon team, though, you will probably find it to be quite subpar. Sunflora is another mono-grass type, with sort of a bizarre design. It is frail, with only a 55 defense, really quite average HP and special defense, and extremely low speed as well, only 30. Its premier stat is 105 special attack, and it seems to be designed as a chlorophyll sweeper. Chlorophyll is an ability that grants double speed in the sun. But this is just not very good in a world where your speed is only 30. They could have given Sunflora more speed. Does a sunflower have to be slow? I don't know, it doesn't really make any sense to give it chlorophyll when its base speed is this terrible. Even double speed Sunflora with max investment is being outrun by very common Pokemon that aren't even very remarkable. So Sunflora really struggles to do the thing it was designed to do. And if you just sidestep that and try to use it as like a bulky support with Leech Seed or something, it is outclassed by just about every other grass type ever due to its poor stats. So I don't really know what they were doing when they made Sunflora. I actually hope they give this a new evolution or something, because it's a second stage that is just kind of bad and has no real identity. Even in the lower tiers, you're not going to see much Sunflora. It has Solar Beam, but so does every grass type ever. Tell me something I don't know. Earth Power is good coverage, I guess, but how are you going to use coverage with these stats and these traits? It's not possible. Perhaps Solar Power is a better way to go. This is another option it gets, with 1.5x special attack in the sun. Use it as a wall breaker instead to jam a big solar beam. But this is chip damaging you. How are you going to even get Sunflora in to do this hit when it's so frail and so slow? It's just not going to happen, I think. This is a pie in the sky dream. But Sunflora doesn't mind. Look at this. Look at that beautiful smile. Who cares, says Sunflora. Who cares about battling? I'm a flower. I think we could all learn from the philosophy of Sunflora. Up next is Carnivine, one of the weirdest Pokemon ever that I often forget exists. Carnivine is a strange Venus flytrap guy that is floating. It's unclear how it can float, but it has the ability to levitate for ground immunity. That's at least good, but everything else about it is quite bad. It's another mono grass type. Its stats are painfully average, especially its very low 46 base speed. Its attack is only 100. And Carnivine's real claim to fame is its access to sleep powder, I guess. I'm kind of stretching with that statement, a claim to fame on this Pokemon. I don't think that Carnivine could be called famous, but it can inflict sleep. It has knockoff. Its attack stat is okay, I guess, among lower tiers. and it has ground immunity. These are traits that have merit, I guess, but in practice you are going to find Carnivine to be quite an unimpressive creature on your battling team. Unlike Sunflora, Carnivine seems to think that he is a threat with that sinister-looking grin. Carnivine is seeking out battle, and Carnivine, I think that you will be met with a terrible fate when you are finally sent out of your Pokeball to certain doom. So I think you should perhaps rethink your strengths and weaknesses and lean into something different rather than battling. It doesn't suit you, Carnivine. The battlefield is adversarial to you. I wouldn't recommend it. Up next is Tropius, one of the most tragic Pokemon to ever exist. Tropius looks so cool. It's got big leaf wings, it's got bananas coming off of it, looks like a fun dinosaur, and yet there's a total mismatch between its awesome visual design and its actual in-battle practicality because its stats are atrocious. It has very little going for it. Its abilities are a bit mismatched. It has Chlorophyll for double speed in the sun. Same problem as Sunflora. You're too slow to take advantage of this. And what offenses are you using? Tropius's best ability is Harvest, which is a good ability that restores berries. 50% chance each turn to restore a berry that you last consumed, and 100% in sun. This is actually a good ability. It's the best thing Tropius has going for it, but honestly, I'm probably overrating Tropius a little bit because of personal bias. I like Tropius quite a bit. One of the more artistically inspired visual designs in the whole series, can I say. And it's a real travesty that they've never returned to it or buffed it meaningfully or done anything for Tropius, despite all of his years of service. He's showing up and trying his best, and what have the developers done for him? Very little. Extremely little. They gave it Harvest, which is a pretty good ability, but it's not going to shake mountains or part seas or anything. It's a small bump. Gives it a random battle set that's pretty good. It's good in random battles because of level scaling, but that's all it has going for it. Tropius, I stand with you and I hope they give you something. Mega Tropius is now out of the question. They've made Legend ZA. They made Mega Chimecho and Mega Scovillain, who they shouldn't have made. They should not have made Mega Scovillain. That was a mistake. I'm not even going to put him in this video because I hate him. And I don't think he deserves to be featured in my video. And where's Mega Tropius? Mega Tropius, it's just a slam dunk. It's an obvious choice. This design could make an incredible Mega. You could rectify a wrong that you've been perpetrating for as long as I can remember. But of course you won't, because the Game Freak company is very dishonorable, very evil. And they don't even value Tropius, who has given everything for them. Tropius has given everything for them, and what do they care about Tropius? They don't care at all. It's disgusting. Up next is Sawsbuck. Sawsbuck is cool. It's a very fantastical and mystical deer creature with different forms based on the weather. Quite beautiful. I'm fond of the winter form in particular, but Sawsbuck, unfortunately, not very good in a competitive context. It has the normal grass typing, which is pretty bad. Sawsbuck has unremarkable stats. Its attack and speed are at least alright. 100 attack and 95 speed, but its bulk is average. This Pokemon is at least relatively functional as a chlorophyll Pokemon with double speed in the sun. It actually can outrun significant amounts of things. It has a good enough speed stat to do that. And 100 attack is workable there. You can probably afford to go adamant in that case and maximize your damage because your base speed is good enough. This Pokemon's physical move pool is a bit lacking though. It has a Horn Leech, which is a good attack, but you would probably rather have something like Power Whip here for more damage output. The lower base power on Horn Leech with the draining effect is more appreciated on a bulky Pokemon. Sawsbuck doesn't really take advantage of that as well on the Chlorophyll Sweeper roll. Double Edge is good, but normal isn't the most amazing offensive type. It also comes with the recoil drawback. And you're stuck with Jump Kick as fighting coverage. It's not bad with 100 power, but the 50% crash damage comes up often against Protect and Miss, and that's no good. That's a real detriment to your consistency. So the physical move pool is a bit lacking, and Sawsbuck feels easy to stop, kind of weak and frail, and it doesn't have that insane offensive firepower to make up for the frailty or anything like that. You can also run Sap Sipper on it and just run it as a more normal threat. Without Chlorophyll, that might be a better way to go because the attack boost and the entry point on grass moves can be useful and good, but this is of course also limited for many of the same reasons and not very good. Another thing Sawsbuck can do is run Serene Grace and the move Headbutt for like the world's worst version of Iron Head Jirachi. Way worse because Headbutt is a weaker attack. With shortcomings, more things resist it and it can't touch ghosts, but this at least allows you to maybe cheese through things with 60% flinch chance, which has its value perhaps. It's considerable. Maybe you could scarf on this and just be the world's weakest version of Jirachi or Shaman or Togekiss. But I don't know if I would bet the house on such a strategy, Sawsbuck. Maybe you should go back to the forest. Maybe you were more well suited in the forest rather than the battlefield. Up next is Trevenant, a ghostly tree with a very frightening appearance. However, if you see this creature in the forest, don't worry, you're not in any danger because this Pokemon doesn't do anything. Trevenant may look frightening, but this Pokemon has little to offer with its poor stats, low speed and frailty being its real death sentence. Trevenant does have a solid attack stat though, it's got that going for it. 110 base attack is quite good. A Ghost Grass typing is also better than Mono Grass and other typings mentioned so far. You can go a long way with a Ghost typing attached. Trevenant also has some decent abilities. Natural Cure for status curing on switch out. Could be worse. Harvest as well for the berry recycling effect. That's good. And Trevenant has Stab Poltergeist, which is a high damage attack. But there are, of course, limitations to being a physical attacker with such low speed and frailty. Generally not a recipe for success. And yet another mismatched visual design and in-battle practicality. This looks like it could easily not only end my existence, but perhaps curse my family for 1,000 years or something. A very frightening looking tree, but it's all a facade, it's all a trick. I guess a ghost would pull a trick like that, using frightening imagery to enhance my fear, when in actuality it's not that powerful. It's all a mask, it's all a fib. Yet another Pokemon that I could take in a 1v1 if it came down to it, I think. Up next is Appleton the Apple Pie Dragon Pokemon. Beautiful creature. Inspired design. Not very good in practice though. Appleton isn't all bad. It's a grass dragon type. You could do worse than that. Appleton has some actual resistances and stuff thanks to the dragon typing. The ability Thick Fat certainly helps, reducing incoming fire and ice type damage. Very impactful on a Pokemon ×4 weak to ice to have Thick Fat. Appleton's stats and bulk are also alright. It has 110 HP, which is good, 80 in each defense. Appleton really suffers from a limited move pool. It can shoot off some solid attacks, it has recovery, but it's pretty passive and doesn't exert enough pressure generally to be very good. And it doesn't have good options like knockoff or entry hazards that defensive Pokemon need to achieve more long-term value. It can probably switch in and wall some things, but it can't leverage that powerful defensive play for anything very meaningful, unfortunately. Up next is Cacturne, who I hate very much, and who I consider to be a foul beast. Cacturne is a scarecrow cactus creature. Fortunately for me, it's quite bad. Cacturne has the grass dark typing, with the terrible shortcomings of ×4 bug weakness, and fairy weakness, and fighting weakness, ice fire weakness, so many weaknesses. Dreadful defensive typing. Cacturne has that Hoenn special stat line with the solid offensive stats but terrible bulk and low speed, which is a general recipe for disaster. But Cacturne does have some alright traits. It at least has spikes. Setting some spikes is impactful. Cacturne has that going for it. It can Sucker Punch, which makes up for its lower speed and allows it to hit pretty hard with a good attack stat. Using priority, it has Water Absorb for water immunity. That's something. That is not nothing. That is something. And Destiny Bond can allow you to trade your Cacturne with the enemy if they erase your life essence from the world, and so theirs will follow. That has its value, but in practice, of course, Cacturne tends to be ranked very low. Generally pretty bad, but at least has spikes, which has an impact on things, and it can sometimes trade up as a result of these tools. And plus, it's a cactus, and if you touch him, you'll say "youch" and hurt your finger, probably. That gives him a defensive advantage. Up next is Shiinotic. I like this guy. Very mystical mushroom creature with a delightful grass fairy typing. Shiinotic is bad, of course, for obvious reasons. It has very bad stats, Low speed and HP being the real marks of weakness. Its special defense is serviceable at least. 90 special attack is okay, but these are not high enough stat values to make up for everything else being so bad. Grass Fairy has advantages. The Fairy typing offers useful dark and fighting resistance and dragon immunity, but times 4 poison weakness is quite terrible in particular, and the typing tends to leave you open to a lot of unfortunate super effective attacks. But Shiinotic does have access to the ever-valuable Spore, which is a great move to inflict sleep with a 100% accuracy, and it also has Strength Sap, one of the best moves in the whole game, which is very rare. Strength Sap is a very scarcely seen move, and an asset to anything that gets it. It will lower the target's attack stat and then heal your Pokemon based on how high their attack stat is. Often this heals for far more than a normal recover, sometimes even fully healing you, plus lowering their attack, which debilitates them and can sometimes force them out. The fact that Shiinotic's typing is a bit better than something like Parasect, and it has not only Spore but Strength Sap, means it's a cut above some of the other grass types that suffer from, poor stats, low speed, and these shortcomings. Shiinotic at least has 2 amazing moves and a typing that's not completely horrendous that gives it more defensive merit. Up next is Maractus. Maractus is quite bad. It pains me to say it because Maractus, I think, has quite an inspired visual design, wouldn't you agree? Yet another cactus creature, but Maractus is a more joyous creature. It's got flowers sprouting out of the top, cactus flowers that resemble hair. Quite a beautiful creature and a creative design. It's quite similar to Cacturne. It's only a mono grass type, so it at least doesn't suffer from the ×4 bug weakness and other shortcomings, but the stats are probably even worse than Cacturne, and the tools are similar. You have spikes, of course, because you're a cactus, Sucker Punch without a stab boost on it. You got Endeavor, which I guess is good with Focus Sash, that's something, and Water Absorb for water immunity and a bit of healing if struck by water. Yet another Pokemon that I think deserves something, like an evolution or a buff of some sort. One of those ones that they made and forgot about, but it's really cool, so it'd be nice if it had some more distinct stuff going on, or a return to the evolution line. But it's understandable that they haven't done anything for Maractus, because they're busy doing important stuff like developing Iron Jugulus, who was imperative for the series, and a presence that if Iron Jugulus was erased from the game, we would all feel it. Everyone would feel that loss. Whereas Maractus is not deserving of any attention. Maractus doesn't help anybody, so why would anyone give it the care that it thinks it deserves? It's stupid of Maractus to think that it's worth anything when Iron Jugulus is in development. Silence, Maractus, and Iron Jugulus is speaking. You idiot. It's okay, Maractus, I will not forget you. I will not forget about you. Everybody remember Maractus and the fact that exists right now. You type in the comments, you say Maractus exists, and send the comment into the universe so that the universe knows that Maractus exists, because they're trying to erase Maractus from the history books, and I do not want to let that happen. I don't want to let that happen. Up next is Meganium, considered by many to be the worst starter Pokemon in the series, and there's some truth to that. Meganium is rather unremarkable, yet another monograss type with pretty limited tools. It's an alright bulky support. Its stats are actually pretty good defensively, with 100 in each defensive stat and an 80 base HP. That results in decent bulk. It's got healing in the form of Synthesis, the support of aromatherapy. It's got an okay attacking move pool, but its offensive stats aren't that good. It's serviceable as a defensive support in some lower tiers, but even then it's often outclassed. It's pretty passive. It doesn't do a whole lot. Meganium did recently get quite a good Mega Evolution, though, in Pokemon Champions, which I think is a well-deserved boost to its social standing. Base form Meganium, though, rather underwhelming. Up next is Simisage, who is a monkey, and I do apologize, in my fire-type ranking, I believe I forgot about Simisage's brother Simisear. This monkey trio is very forgettable. I often do not recall their existences, and it's easy to see why. Simisage is a grass type that is just the world's most average offensive Pokemon. It has 101 speed, which is actually alright, and 98 in both of its attack and special attack stats. Poor bulk, and just some offensive options. The ability Overgrow, which you see on starter Pokemon. More grass damage at a third or less of its HP. A very boring Pokemon, all things considered, but I suppose it's pretty good as an offensive threat in ZU. It is pretty fast and hard-hitting for that power level, but anything beyond that is not going to be a fun time for Simisage, who is a monkey without a motive, is what I would call him. And what's with his hair? He's got, like, very spiky hair, like Marge Simpson or somebody like that. Up next is Leavanny, who is, I think, a fun Pokemon. Leavanny has some pretty atrocious shortcomings. Bug Grass typing is one of the worst in the game. Very bad. Leavanny's stats are not really outstanding enough to make up for having one of the worst typings in the game. But against the odds, I would put Leavanny higher than you would think based on those shortcomings, purely because it has access to Sticky Web, and Sticky Web is such a good move that it can make up for an otherwise terrible Pokemon. This is a very coveted entry hazard that lowers the speed of opposing Pokemon as they switch in, and can enable hyper offense teams very effectively. There are better Sticky Web setters in the game and more powerful ones, but still having Sticky Web in a vacuum is a powerful trait. It's a good thing. And if you replaced a dedicated Sticky Web setter on a good Sticky Web offense team with a Leavanny with a Focus Sash, it would perform pretty solidly. It might be slightly worse and less desirable, but it would get the job done. Just setting Sticky Web and dying is literally valuable enough to justify a Pokemon slot a lot of the time. So Leavanny has that going for it. It also has some slight merit over other Sticky Web setters because of its access to Chlorophyll. There was, of course, that Ozma team that used Eject Pack Leaf Storm on a Sun team with Sticky Web and a Sun as a game plan, and then Chlorophyll fit well with that. You could set Sticky Web with double speed in some scenarios, or just Leaf Storm and pivot out with the Eject Pack. Pretty cool that this had a slight bit of OU viability. I wouldn't bump up its position that much as a result of that. It was one team, but it still speaks to Leavanny's interesting traits that have slight value, very slight amounts of value. Up next is Flapple, yet another creatively inspired design, a little apple dragon flapping its apple slice wings, delightful. Flapple is pretty bad. It's quite frail and has an unimpressive 70 speed, but its attack is good. Its typing is alright, and it has Dragon Dance. So in lower tiers, this can be an alright physical attacking sweeper. Dragon Dance does make up for its lower speed, and at the +1 speed, it can actually outrun some stuff. It has the humorous move Grav Apple, which is really good actually. It lowers the defense by 1 on hit with a solid 80 power. Flapple usually uses the ability Hustle, which is a risky ability. It lowers your accuracy, but increases your attack by 1.5x. The amount of breaking power you do get from this is probably worth the risk, but this ability does come with some significant inconsistency, of course. Not an amazing Pokemon by any means, but a reasonably functional physical attacker in some ZU tiers, which is something, I suppose. Plus, he's awesome and cool. Up next is Bellossom. Bellossom is pretty unremarkable. It's a grass type with rather average stats, especially a 50 base speed, but Bellossom does have access to 2 great moves. Quiver Dance, which is one of the strongest boosts in the game, boosting special attack, special defense, and speed by 1 stage in a single turn, and Strength Sap, which we've talked about earlier, one of the strongest utility and healing moves in the game. With access to these 2 options, this guy can punch above its weight and be a pretty decent bulky boosting win condition. And access to Strength Sap does allow it to lean into the bulky side and make up for the lower speed, which could be a detriment as it's still not that fast post Quiver Dance. But with Strength Sap, you can make up for that a little bit. So Bellossom has something going for it. Its special attack is also alright at base 90. Not amazing, but serviceable when you factor in the Quiver Dance win condition spam. Up next is Lilligant. Lilligant is extremely similar to Bellossom, actually, another monograss type Quiver Dance sweeping Pokemon, but Lilligant is much better. Lilligant actually has a serviceable speed stat of base 90. Its special attack is 110, which is quite good. Its bulk isn't the best, and that's a shortcoming, but Lilligant also happens to have access to Sleep Powder, which is nice and can give it free turns with which to set up Quiver Dance. It also works well in conjunction with a speed boost to outrun and incapacitate various things. Lilligant is not amazing beyond lower tiers, but in lower tiers it is a formidable Quiver Sweeper. And a respectable entity. How good is that? Up next we've got Gorgeist Lodge, who is a Halloween pumpkin. Jack-o'-lantern. That's what that's called. We don't really celebrate Halloween here in Australia, but I've been exposed to it through popular culture and media, so that's good. I get the reference. Gorgeist is yet another ghost grass type, but it actually has a good defense stat of 122 in its large form. And with options like Will-O-Wisp and Foul Play and Synthesis, it can be an alright physical wall in lower tiers. But of course, its ability is pretty much useless. Frisk has limited value. Its bulk is alright, but nothing special when you go to mid tiers or high tiers. But in lower tiers, this is an acceptable physical wall. Up next is Alolan Exeggutor, a funny Pokemon, who is a tree that stretches to the skies. A very tall Pokemon. Alolan Exeggutor is alright, it has an impressive 125 base special attack and pretty decent bulk with solid HP and defenses. Altogether, it can hit hard with such moves as Draco Meteor and Leaf Storm, boosted by Stab. It's got a pretty good special move pool with such complementary options as Flamethrower. It is very slow, with only 45 speed, but it can be okay as a choice specs threat. In lower tiers, I recall this sometimes being used on Trick Room teams, because it has Trick Room. Not the best option in singles, but it's a Trick Room Pokemon that poses a threat after clicking Trick Room with its high special attack and good coverage, and has a very low speed to take advantage of the Trick Room immediately, so that's something also. Certainly a bad Pokemon, but comedically very resonant, and has an alright, typing and offensive profile and threat level with a good special attack and stuff like this. There's some things going on here. Up next is Brute Bonnet, the past Paradox form of Amoonguss, and quite a weird Paradox Pokemon. Brute Bonnet is reinventing itself, now a physical wall breaker, where Amoonguss is more of a defensive utility guy, but Brute Bonnet's not very good at being a physical wall breaker. It has a Grass Dark typing, a typing with significant defensive shortcomings. It's very slow with only 55 speed. Its bulk is solid, with a high HP stat and 99 in each defense, and its attack is very high with 127 in its attack. But being slow with this typing is a real death sentence. Unfortunately for Brute Bonnet, they also banned Sleep entirely in Gen 9, which is the only gen where this guy exists. Formerly, this could at least be a Spore user with some pretty good offensive potency post-Spore, but that's no longer a thing, so Brute Bonnet is left to reckon with itself without this powerful tool, and there's little going for it, to be honest. It's, I think, an alright wall breaker in ZU. Close combat is pretty good as a coverage option. It's got a Sucker Punch, which at least makes up for its low speed, and its attack is very high. Its bulk is also not the worst, but those weaknesses, those terrible weaknesses, and its dreadfully low speed are just such a difficult hurdle to overcome for Brute Bonnet. Truly. Up next is Leafeon, who is a very popular grass type, the grass type evolution. Unfortunately, Leafeon has always been one of the worst evolutions. And Leafeon, I think, is a Pokemon that looks a lot better than it is in practice. The stats on this are pretty good. Has a really respectable 110 attack, a great defense stat of 130, and serviceable 95 speed. Leafeon also has Chlorophyll and access to Solar Blade, which also synergizes with Sun, so it seems to have a toolkit that works well on a Sun team. But Leafeon suffers from incredibly limited offensive tools. Knockoff is great, and it has some good Grass Stab, Solar Blade for when Sun is up, and Leaf Blade when it's not. But beyond that, it doesn't have very much else. With X-Scissor for bug coverage, but it's pretty easy for Leafeon to get walled by just about any standard physical defensive Pokemon. And that's Leafeon's biggest problem, is just the difficulty in breaking through physical walls, despite seeming to have the foundations of a solid physical attacker. Leafeon can get by pretty well in low tiers and sometimes middle tiers off of these traits, but there it's niche. It's generally only good in the ZU tier. And recently, even that isn't very true. In Gen 9, ZU Leafeon is scarcely seen. Up next is Hisuian Decidueye version, and this is a Pokemon I had high hopes for when it was announced. I thought it might be alright. This is a grass fighting type with the ability Scrappy, which is a great ability allowing fighting and normal type attacks to hit through ghosts and also offering Intimidate immunity. Hisuian Decidueye also has the Triple Arrows signature move, which is a great move, a 90 power fighting type attack with 3 different effects. It has a higher crit rate, a 50% chance to drop defense, and a 30% chance to flinch. I thought that the combination of Scrappy and this powerful Triple Arrows would be good. Unfortunately, Hisuian Decidueye couldn't really overcome the simple fact that its stats aren't that good, and it's quite slow, and also frail for Gen 9's high standards. Just a bit of a dysfunctional Pokemon in practice, which is unfortunate. I like the design of it. I like his hair, or is it more of a hat? Who knows, really. That ambiguity adds to the symbolic complexity of Hisuian Decidueye. A Pokemon with a lot of mysteries and secrets to share. Up next is Jumpluff, who is a sort of fast support Pokemon. It only has 55 in attack and special attack, and its bulk isn't that amazing, but it is quite fast with 110 speed. In Generation 3, Jumpluff is OU viable due to it having a fast sleep-inflicting move along with Encore and Leech Seed, which are powerful options. Jumpluff in recent games has received Strength Sap, which is pretty good. It also has U-Turn, which can leverage its speed for momentum at least. Jumpluff certainly not amazing or anything. It's in a weird position where it's fast but not offensively threatening, and also sort of bulky but not really. Its typing is not the best, but being fast with sleep does a lot of heavy lifting. Strength Sap's a great move, and pivoting helps too. So the Pokemon's alright. It also has a pretty good ability in Infiltrator, which can power through substitutes and also ignore screen effects. Pretty nice to be able to sleep an enemy through substitute, actually. That's pretty cool. Up next is Victreebel. Victreebel is a Gen 1 Pokemon, and it has had an interesting career. In Gen 1, Victreebel is pretty good, or it was historically, thanks to its access to Sleep Powder and Wrap. Wrap being a powerful option in Gen 1 that can completely restrict the opponent from moving. Victreebel also received Chlorophyll in Gen 5, and it's fairly alright, has a Sun Sweeper as a result of this. It has such tools as Weather Ball for a fire type attack, Solar Beam, Stab, Sludge Bomb, and of course Sleep Powder in the Sun, which allows for free turns. Very useful. It is competing with other Chlorophyll Pokemon, but I think it's a reasonably functional Chlorophyll Sweeper, all things considered, in a couple of generations, and I suppose that's worthy of some respect. Not that amazing though. It suffers from its poor stats. Even its offensive stats are nothing incredible. A rather average Pokemon. Up next is Lurantis, yet another monograss type with rather underwhelming stats. This is a common theme. There's many of these. Lurantis is very slow. Its bulk is alright. Its offenses are alright, but nothing spectacular. But Lurantis finds itself at this position on the list due to it having a couple pretty incredible traits. Lurantis has access to Defog, which is a very nice utility option that removes hazards from the field. Beautiful to have in competitive singles, where this is a very valuable form of utility. Can assist your team. Lurantis has reliable healing in the form of Synthesis. There are better healing moves, but this is something. And Lurantis has the amazing ability Contrary. Contrary is a great ability that inverts stat stage changes. If you were going to lose stats, you instead gain them, and vice versa. And Contrary synergizes beautifully with two of Lurantis' moveset options. Leaf Storm, which usually lowers special attack by 2, now raises special attack by 2, turning a detriment into an advantage. Beautiful. And also Superpower, which does much the same, lowering attack and defense by 1 stage. As a drawback, now turned into a boost as you gain +1 attack and defense every time you utilize Superpower. Very powerful. So Lurantis, actually a pretty good low tier support that also has this ramping mixed attacker set going on. Pretty cool, actually. Not going to be great in OU or anything, not going to achieve much in the higher tiers, but as far as average grass types go, Lurantis has a bit more flair than them. Many of them. Up next is Scovillain. Scovillain has pretty bad stats, but I think it has some stuff going for it. Scovillain has the Grass-Fire typing, which is a great type combo offensively. Fire and Grass are very complementary types that cover each other's weaknesses very well offensively. Scovillain is also the only Fire type to have Chlorophyll, and this is quite a boon. Chlorophyll granting double speed in the sun, usually only on Grass types, but to have it on a actual Fire type who has stab damage boosted by the sun is quite good. And those benefits compound, as they do on many Swift Swim Pokemon. Scovillain also has a pretty solid offensive move pool. Solar Beam, of course, for the sun synergy. Various different forms of Fire, Stab, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Overheat as well. Giga Drain for more reliable Grass Stab outside of sun. And Scovillain has mixed attacking stats with equal values in its attack and special attack, so you could run Stomping Tantrum for ground coverage that actually hits pretty hard. Scovillain can run Temper Flare as a physical fire option if it wants. Probably better off with the more powerful base power values of the special attacks, but it's an option nonetheless. Unfortunately, all of those advantages have not assisted Scovillain that much for its tier ranking in Gen 9. It is relegated to the ZU tier, which is the lowest tier. I think Scovillain came at the wrong time. I think that if this came out earlier, it would have been very good, actually. But Gen 9 is a high power level format. Scovillain exists at the same time as the Protosynthesis Pokemon, which is a better form of Sun Synergy that pretty much replaces Scovillain. Sun teams are good, but Scovillain can't find much of a role on them. And Scovillain can also suffer from a lack of good drought Pokemon in the lower tiers where it is relegated to. But in a vacuum, Scovillain does have some admirable traits that are pretty good. It just suffers from its poor stats and existing in an adversarial generation, I think. Up next is Brambleghast, a fun new Gen 9 Pokemon. I think this Pokemon's very cool. Brambleghast is another Grass Ghost type Pokemon, which is a decent typing in some ways. Brambleghast has some valuable utility. It has Rapid Spin, which is a sought after option, which removes hazards. Very nice. Strength Sap, yet another sought after option. Brambleghast has a pretty good attack stat of 115, and it can use the powerful Stab, Poltergeist, and Power Whip for some meaningful damage output. Brambleghast also has Wind Rider, which is a new ability in Gen 9 that makes you immune to wind-based moves, such as Hurricane, which is actually very relevant for Brambleghast, because it would otherwise be weak and very threatened by Hurricane. There are also other wind-based moves in the game, like Icy Wind, etc., and if Tailwind begins, you also receive an attack boost. Pretty cool ability. Brambleghast, unfortunately, has shortcomings. Its HP is very low. That's probably the worst thing about it. 55 HP and 70 in each of the defenses is not very good in the bulk department. But I think Brambleghast is alright. It's ranked NU in Gen 9. Not so bad, considering Gen 9 is a very adversarial environment. And when you look at Brambleghast in a vacuum, it's a solid Pokemon. If this was in a past gen, I could see it being like UU or something. I could even envision this having a niche in OU, if you're creative enough to make it work. It's got some genuine tools, some distinct typing. The Wind Rider ability lets it come in on, like, Zapdos or something. That's valued to somebody. Someone cares about that. And plus he's a ghostly tumbleweed. Inspired design, can I say? One of the cooler Gen 9 Pokemon. I'm a Brambleghast supporter. You might not be, but I am. Up next is Cradily. And Cradily is certainly a pretty unremarkable Pokemon. Its stats are nothing to write home about. It's sort of weird looking also. But Cradily is a Pokemon that I think is slightly better than it looks. Not that much better than it looks, but Rock Grass typing is kind of alright actually. It's weirdly complementary. Thanks to Grass typing, Rock is no longer weak to ground, it's neutral. You're also neutral to fire, and you have some good resistances and such. Sand immunity, powder immunity. The typing is decent, and it can work on a specially defensive Pokemon like this. Cradily also has the ability Storm Drain, which grants water immunity, and a +1 special attack boost when struck by water. And that's actually really nice too. You are neutral to water in your natural typing, so big, powerful water type attacks could power through you, but water immunity is always appreciated, so a decent defensive profile for some lower tiers. Also, Cradily just has Recover for good, straightforward healing, and Stealth Rock, and sometimes that's all you need. It's got something to do when it switches in, and it's got a way to heal and stick around. It's got a decent defensive profile, pretty well-rounded stats for a low-tier Pokemon. 107 special defense is good. Almost 100 in the defense, 97, and 86 HP is workable. So Cradily is an alright, low-tier defensive Pokemon. Up next is Shiftry, who is a decent chlorophyll sweeper. Sometimes Shiftry sets itself apart from others with its grass dark typing. A typing with a lot of defensive shortcomings, but offensively, on a Pokemon that can achieve speed in the sun through chlorophyll, it is appreciated to have such tools as Stab Knockoff and Leaf Storm. Shiftry has some Uber's viability in some generations thanks to chlorophyll pairing well with Groudon, who sets sun on the field through drought. This is especially true in Gen 3 and 4, where Explosion has twice the amount of power and is a very great option on a Pokemon with double speed in the sun that can even trade with powerful legendaries in that context. A very useful tool to have on such a Pokemon. Not as useful when they nerfed it though, of course. So I would give Shiftry its flowers for those traits. Of course, beyond that, it is pretty bad. Grass Dark, terrible defensively. Outside of the sun, it's kind of just pure garbage, but as far as chlorophyll sweepers go, it has a decent history and is respectable. Up next is Arboliva, who is an olive tree Pokemon. I quite like Arboliva. Pretty cool design here. Arboliva is a grass normal type. Not the most amazing typing in the world, but Arboliva's stats are actually pretty decent. Got some solid bulk, 78 HP, 90 defense, and 109 special defense, and its special attack is an impressive 125. Low speed, but I think it has enough bulk to function, sort of. And it also has the ability Seed Sower, which is unique to it. Whenever it is hit by an attack, it creates grassy terrain on the field. Pretty cool ability. Similar to Sandaconda or something, setting an effect on the field when struck by an attack. Arboliva can of course utilize the grassy terrain for a powerful choice specs boosted Leaf Storm. Arboliva actually has a pretty good move pool as well. Earth Power is always a great option to have. Ground really rounds out offensive movesets. It's very nice, hits a lot of important things. Alluring Voice, decent fairy coverage, and Hyper Voice for normal stab. Now, don't get me wrong, Arboliva is ranked ZU in Gen 9. It's not very good in that context, but I think it almost feels wrong for a Pokemon with stats like this to be ZU. It really says something about Gen 9's power level that a Pokemon with pretty well-rounded bulk and a high special attack like this that also has an ability that sets a terrain on the field is ZU. I think that does say a lot. I think in prior gens Arboliva would be a pretty solid Pokemon. At least I would hope so. Having only base 39 speed is a pretty big detriment, and normal grass typing does have its shortcomings, of course. But I respect this Pokemon all the same. Also, have you considered that olives are quite yummy, and are a good ingredient on pizza and in sandwiches? It's undeniable. Up next is Toedscruel, a new regional variant to Tentacruel, who can walk on the ground with tentacles. Very frightening creature, but a cool one. I like this design. A pretty unique take on a regional form, I think. Toedscruel is interesting. It has the same stats as Tentacruel, and a ground grass typing, which of course has the terrible drawback of being ×4 Ice Weak. That's never good. But it does have some good defensive merit, and offensively it's actually a pretty nice combo. Toedscruel has a high speed of 100, a good special defense, and a good enough HP to take advantage of that, despite being vulnerable to the ice moves. Only 80 special attack, but Toedscruel actually still feels pretty offensively threatening with the nice grass ground stab combo, and Toedscruel does have the useful utility of rapid spin, which is always good, and also knockoff. Toedscruel's exclusive ability is interesting too. It causes your status moves to go last in their priority bracket, which is bad, but they will also ignore abilities And so Toedscruel has Spore, but this Spore is able to bypass Magic Bounce, Good as Gold, Purifying Salt, etc. Anything that offers status immunity or bounce back or anything like that. Overcoat, which offers sleep immunity, insomnia, etc. You can bypass all of that and get a guaranteed Spore. The only thing that can stop this Spore is a grass type. So that's interesting. Unfortunately, though, the fact that it goes last is a real detriment. Toedscruel would certainly rather just not have this ability and have a really fast Spore, but that would be pretty broken, to be honest, to have a 100 base speed Pokemon with Spore. So I think this was an intentional choice to nerf this while also giving it some benefit, powering through abilities. I think this was an intentional design choice. They're not idiots for this. I think they did it on purpose. And it still has Spore, which is a good option, even if it's going last. Unfortunately, though, Spore is now completely banned in Gen 9 OU, the only gen where this exists, because of the universal sleep ban. But in theory, an alright Pokemon. You know, it's got some stuff going for it. I don't think it's very good even in ZU in Gen 9, unfortunately. I feel as if this could be alright in past gens. It would suffer from the Mycelium Mite. But also, I mean, this is a pretty good move pool. It's got spin and knock and stuff. It's fast. It's relatively bulky. It's a weird Pokemon to evaluate, to be honest. I think it's overall quite bad, but it's at least interesting. I could see it having random niches or being alright in a lower tier in some context. Up next is Vileplume. Vileplume is a grass poison type Pokemon and one of the lesser ones, but grass poison I think is a pretty good defensive combination. With this typing you're always able to find nice entry points against fairy and fighting and water type attacks. Vileplume also has a little bit to offer in the fact that it has Strength Sap, which is an amazing move. It can take good advantage of this move alongside its nice defensive typing, and also Vileplume has a slight claim to fame in Gen 9 OU where it has a niche in walling Ogerpon Wellspring quite well, resisting both of its stab types, using its attack against it with Strength Sap and then threatening it significantly with Sludge Bomb. An average Pokemon overall, but I think it can punch above its weight from time to time. It's a random battle superstar and it is surprisingly decent in Gen 9 as well. There's things to admire about Vileplume, as much as haters will try to tell you otherwise. Up next is Wo-Chien, the ancient snail. A beautiful creature, one of the better Gen 9 Pokemon designs in my opinion. Unfortunately the worst of its legendary group, and a pretty bad Pokemon. I wanted to rank this guy higher, but honestly I'm probably overrating it with its position here on the list. Be absolutely honest. Wo-Chien may seem to have a lot of advantages. It certainly has a great defensive ability, Tablets of Ruin, which reduces the enemy's attack stat significantly by 25%. Its stats are pretty good too. With 135 special defense and a 100 base defense, the base defense effectively enhanced by lowering the enemy's attack with your passive ability, and 85 HP is also pretty good with stats like that. Unfortunately though, Wo-Chien has the cursed dark grass typing, which is just not really tenable for a defensive Pokemon like this with all of the weaknesses. I mean, your times for weak to bug, you're weak to fairy, fighting, fire, ice, flying. It's just so terrible. That's a lot of types. Your utility move pool is decent. You have knockoff, which is always great. Foul play allows you to leverage some dark stab and use the enemy's attack against them. Leech Seed is at least something. It's kind of grasping at straws when you're using Leech Seed in 2026, to be honest, but it's something. It applies some pressure, it heals you. I'm not going to give Wo-Chien credit for having Protect. Everybody has Protect. That's not special Wo-Chien, come on. And beyond this, like, you've got attacks, and you don't have a good healing move. You don't actually have amazing options in the move set. Maybe if Wo-Chien had a bit more than this, you could justify it. And I often think to myself, maybe Wo-Chien would be good in a past gen, but I don't even know if that's true. I think the typing is so bad, and it's too slow, and the move pool is too unremarkable. It could knock things off and Leech Seed things, but it might even be worse in past gens because it can't Terra defensively. I think PU might be the peak of Wo-Chien's viability possible. Perhaps in past gens it would be even worse. I don't know. Could this survive in Gen 7 OU? I don't think so. I'm thinking it would get eaten alive by Z moves and Ash, Greninja, and people like this. Wo-Chien, I don't think you have a future. But I suppose you're an ancient being from the past, so you're not concerned with the future as much. Wuchen, you seem to have wisdom beyond what I can comprehend, so maybe I shouldn't lambast you so much, and I should listen to you and hear what you have to say, rather than being so rude. I apologize. Up next is Virizion, who is a legendary, but is the weakest of its legendary group. Always an unfortunate fate. Virizion is one of the Swords of Justice, and it's kind of a weird one. Virizion is a grass fighting type with undeniably good stats. 129 special defense is great, as is 108 speed. That's above average. But its attack is only 90, and its special attack is only 90. So it has the tools and the traits that serve a fast physical attacker well. Its physical move pool is quite good, but all of these stats are spent in special defense, which is a little awkward for it. It's not the most threatening thing on the planet, and it doesn't really leverage that high special defense for much gain. You can't use this as a defensive utility Pokemon or anything, really. Virizion is decent in the middle tiers in a couple of generations as a result of its Swords Dance set and its good stab combo of Close Combat and Leaf Blade, as well as a pretty decent selection of complementary coverage. It's a pretty good Swords Dance sweeper, and it can, I suppose, leverage that high special defense for more Swords Dance opportunities, which is good. The ability Justified is shared by all of the Swords of Justice, and Virizion can take decent advantage of this as it switches in on a dark move and gets an attack boost. Often doesn't come up or make much of a difference in battle, but it could as you switch in on a resisted hit and get an attack boost. It could make a difference. Another reason to run a physical set with it rather than a special one. It can be run with Calm Mind instead of Swords Dance, but I think its physical options tend to be more popular. In Gen 9, Virizion is ZU ranked, and it has sort of been declining in ranks ever since it came out. It's alright, but even in the middle tiers where Virizion used to thrive, there are more threatening Pokemon coming out that have begun to outclass it. Not a dreadful Pokemon, but not a remarkable one either. Up next is Exeggutor, and I'm giving this a bit of respect for its legacy. In Generation 1 OU, Exeggutor is one of the strongest Pokemon in the game, with its powerful Sleep Powder, Explosion, and Stab Psychic combination. Its stats are also pretty good for the time. Solid Bulk and a great special stat in particular. In Gen 2, Exeggutor is also very good in the OU tier, for that same combination of Sleep Powder and Explosion. Thief is useful, as well as the high special attack and Psychic still having its merit. And in Gen 3, Exeggutor is at least UUBL ranked, which is respectable. It gains the new ability Chlorophyll in Gen 3, which grants double speed in the sun, and Exeggutor does have a little bit of value as a Chlorophyll Pokemon in Ubers, alongside Groudon. Unlike Shiftry, Exeggutor has Sleep Powder, and that is valued, and it does have the high special attack for genuine impressive breaking power. Of course, in modern times, this Pokemon has gotten far worse. Grass Psychic, a very bad type combo in modern day, used to be quite a good one, now not so much. Times for Bug Weakness, Ghost Weakness, and Dark Weakness are all terribly debilitating. Low speed doesn't help. Exeggutor did gain Harvest in Gen 5, but not enough of an amazing option to make up for the terrible shortcomings of Grass Psychic, but I think Exeggutor deserves some accolades for its great heights it reached earlier on. Solid Roll is a Chlorophyll Pokemon in certain contexts, and just overall being a well-executed Pokemon. This is one of the cases of the starkest drop-offs in Pokemon viability, starting as a top-tier choice in Gen 1 and now being all the way ranked down in the ZU tier in Gen 9. Quite a significant fall from grace here, for sure. Up next is Decidueye, a starter Pokemon, and the worst of its trio, unfortunately. Incineroar and Primarina have far more to say for themselves. Decidueye is lagging behind comparatively. I've always liked Decidueye though. It's a cool design, looks like a Robin Hood inspiration, with a cape and an archery theme. Decidueye is a grass ghost type with some decent defensive traits. The typing is solid, of course, and 100 special defense and 78 HP are alright. The stats are generally decently well-rounded, and Decidueye also has a pretty cool move pool. Spirit Shackle is a signature move of this Pokemon that is actually really good. It's 80 power, and it prevents the target from switching. Not only a above-average power for a ghost physical attack, but the trapping effect is very powerful on this. Decidueye has the ability to long reach, which means its moves do not make physical contact with the opponent, which is actually really good. There are common contact effects to punish physical attackers everywhere, like Rocky Helmet, Iron Barbs, Flame Body. To sidestep all of that is quite nice. So Decidueye is decent. It has good physical options. It has Defog, which is good utility. It has U-turn. For the ever valuable pivoting, which is always nice. Fortunately, Decidueye is just kind of average on the stats. The stats are not horrible, but they're not amazing either. It's a bit slow. It is sort of bulky, but not that bulky. Decidueye is just kind of mid. It's not a completely dysfunctional Pokemon, but it ends up settling around the NU tier in most generations. And I suppose that's alright. That's where he belongs. Up next is Mega Abomasnow. Yes, I'm ranking the Mega lower than the base form for this one. Mega Abomasnow is exactly the same as base form Abomasnow, but with higher stats. Its stats are pretty good, I will say. It has good mixed attacking stats, decent well-rounded bulk, I suppose. But to be honest, for a Mega, these stats aren't that amazing. If this was a non-Mega, we might be having a different conversation. But for a Mega, this is not that crazy. It's slow, and it has the Grass Ice typing, which is insanely bad defensively. Times 4 weak to fire, many other weaknesses to speak of. I think Mega Abomasnow is largely just a waste of the Mega slot. It is a lower ranked Mega in Gens 6 and 7, and I honestly think that just running a base form Abomasnow is more fruitful. It is less of a commitment, and for all the advantages you get from Mega evolving, in the stats department it's not enough to really make up for the fundamental shortcomings of Abomasnow, and it's rather a waste of a valuable resource, which is Mega Evolution. Through sheer stats, I think this is better than many of the other Pokemon mentioned so far, but for a Mega, quite an underwhelming creature. Up next is Tsarina. This Pokemon's interesting. It has a very high attack stat of 120 and alright defenses of 98 in each. But its speed is average at only 72. Tsarina has the ability Queenly Majesty, which is very good. It shields you completely from all priority moves. This is a much more relevant ability in doubles, where it shields your ally as well and blocks the ever-present Fake Out, but still a good ability in singles too, where priority moves are common. Tsarina also has access to Rapid Spin, which is nice. Some great utility. And it hits extremely hard with Power Whip off of its incredibly high base attack stat. Tsarina does have shortcomings. It is slow, it has limited offensive coverage, but the priority immunity and high attack and good utility move pool are decent for Tsarina. It's an alright Pokemon. Up next is Delmise, who is for certain a very creatively inspired Pokemon. This is some algae growing on what seems to be an anchor and also a ship's steering wheel. Some ghostly algae possessing perhaps the soul of a sailor, I don't know. It's beautiful, it captures the imagination, Delmise. Very good. This is an interesting Pokemon. It's a ghost grass type with a very high attack stat of 131. And the interesting ability Steel Worker, which grants 1.5x to its attack when using a steel type move, like an extra stab bonus for steel moves. Delmise has pretty decent defenses, actually. 100 defense, 90 special defense, 70 HP, results in some solid bulk. So this is a pretty good slow defensive attacker in mid tiers. It has Rapid Spin, which is great utility of course to remove hazards. Can heal with Synthesis. It has Poltergeist for a very solid ghost stab option, and Power Whip for another high base power stab option. This is the recommended set for Gen 8 UU. Funnily enough, not using any of the steel type attacks to take advantage of Steel Worker, but even without using this ability at all, Delmise has merit here. A cool Pokemon and a decent one in recent mid-tiers. It's not in Gen 9, but you can't help but wonder how it would do in Gen 9. What with hazard removal being more scarce, maybe Delmise would find itself in a higher tier this time around. It could also Terra Steel and gain an additional stab bonus on top of the Steel Worker. That could result in some pretty incredible damage output for it. Interesting idea. Up next is Electrode Hisui, a new regional form of Electrode from the Legends Arceus video game. I think this is a cool Pokemon. Electrode Hisui is extremely fast with 150 base speed. The rest of its stats are not much to write home about, but 80 special attack could be worse given the insane level of speed. And what's also cool about Electrode Hisuian is its electric grass dual typing. I actually think this is quite a good dual typing for an offensive Pokemon. You become neutral to ground, which is good for an electric type, and offensively they're quite complementary. One of the pitfalls of many electric types is the fact that ground types are completely immune and easily stop you, but grass is super effective against ground, making it a very convenient type to also have stab on with Leaf Storm. Electrode Hisui can hit incredibly hard with that. In Gen 9, Electrode Hisui is ranked ZUBL, which is quite low. But I think if this existed in prior gens, it would probably be ranked higher. That's my opinion. I think the typing is great, the speed is great, the special attack is not so amazing, but I could at least see this Pokemon being an RU or something like that in Gen 8 or Gen 7 if it existed. Up next is Sceptile, and Sceptile's an unfortunate Pokemon, I think. When it came out in Gen 3, it was alright. It's quite fast at 120 base speed. That's a good speed stat. But even in Gen 3 OU, at the peak of this Pokemon's power, it was a little bit mid. 105 special attack is decent, but Sceptile did find itself struggling with a limited offensive move pool, low base power moves, and struggling to hit important one-hit KOs. In future games, Sceptile got access to tools like a Leaf Storm and Focus Blast, which do have a higher base power, but these come with drawbacks. Focus Blast with the inaccuracy, Leaf Storm with the special attack lowering, and Sceptile often found itself in the middle tiers. In Gen 9, it is now ranked ZU. Yes, it's fast, but it's not so offensively threatening that it can make up for its frailty and leverage that speed for a great offensive advantage. It still does suffer from unfortunate options in its moveset. Focus Blast is not a move you really want to rely on. It's effing about with Dragon Pulse as coverage for lack of much better. It's just not a very successful Pokemon, to be honest with you. Unburden was the ability it got in Gen 5, granting double speed on held item loss. It's not really that amazing at using this. It can run gems in Gen 5, perhaps, but not in current day, because those are banned now, of course. There are maybe Grassy Seed sets you could run on Sceptile, that's something. But the Acrobatics combo that you want to use with Unburden is not amazing on a Pokemon with such low attack. That's another issue. Sceptile actually has a weirdly good physical move pool, but not a high enough actual attack stat to use that very well. So you're usually stuck with just being an average special attacker that isn't that powerful for modern standards, and even back in the Stone Age, back in Gen 3, it wasn't that powerful either. How terrible for Sceptile. Up next is Whimsicott. Whimsicott is much better known in competitive doubles, where its powerful Prankster Tailwind combo are elite. In singles, it's not as amazing, but the utility value of Prankster, I think, gives Whimsicott some stuff to do. Prankster is one of the strongest utility abilities you can get. It grants a +1 priority boost to all status moves, and this has many useful applications. Whimsicott has priority on such options as Encore, Leech Seed, Stun Spore. Encore is the big one, I think. Priority Encore can really get you out of a bind. It can force the enemy to repeat a dragon move and you're completely immune. It can force the enemy to repeat a boost or a healing move and you're always going to outrun them due to the priority. Whimsicott can do the Sub-Seed combo, which is not so bad. It's pretty cool. Moonblast with Stab is at least an attack. You don't have a great special attack stat, but it's just a great attack. You don't mind having it, and you're fast with U-turn also, so that's good. Whimsicott, I think, is a decent Prankster support Pokemon. Certainly far better in doubles, but it can do some stuff in the mid-tiers in singles as well. It's alright. Up next is Shaymin the Hedgehog, a delightful little Legendario. Shaymin came out in Gen 4, and actually even in Gen 4 OU, Shaymin wasn't the best. This Pokemon is designed similarly to Celebi and Mew and Jirachi, with 100 base stats across the board to be sort of malleable and buildable in any direction. It has Natural Cure as its ability, which is decent, curing status on switch out. And Shaman has some interesting qualities that are worthy of note, like the powerful move Seed Flare, which has a 120 base power and 40% chance to lower special defense by 2 stages. A pretty nice wall-breaking tool. Earth Power is also nice for coverage. But I think Shaman has always struggled a little bit with competitive viability. It may have 100 base stats across the board, which can't be too bad, but it's never really excelling particularly well in any area. It's an alright special attacking wall breaker, but there are more powerful ones. It's comparable to Mew, who tends to be more successful with its sheer versatility. Shaman is not actually that versatile. It's got the stat spread of a versatile Pokemon, but not that many tools to take advantage of the stat versatility on display. It's usually just relegated to being a special attacker of some sort, and in that area it's not that amazing compared to other things, especially as the years have gone on and power creep has pushed Shaman out of the conversation, regrettably. Shaman is not terrible or anything, but it's just sort of average and not particularly outstanding. It's ranked PU in Gen 9, which is quite unfortunate for a Legendario. Or is this a mythical? I think this might be a mythical, actually. Up next is Ludicolo, who I'm quite fond of. I think this is a cool Pokemon. When Ludicolo debuted in Gen 3, it was a decent OU niche choice. Ludicolo is a water grass type, which has pretty good defensive value. It's a rare water type neutral to electric, and you carry with you ground resistance. You're also neutral to ice. Actually quite a nice typing in many ways. And Ludicolo has the ability Swift Swim, which is its real claim to fame. Double speed in the rain. Setting Rain Dance manually is actually viable in Gen 3 OU in some cases, and Ludicolo can be good. With that, its stats are not that incredible, but with double speed, 90 special attack, and the nice Water Grass stab combo, Ice Beam as a complementary option, and Leech Seed for mid-game value, Ludicolo was pretty good. Ludicolo also had some Ubers viability in Gen 3, thanks to its teammate Kyogre setting Permanent Rain for it. With Permanent Rain on the field, Ludicolo has a permanent double speed boost, making it way more threatening. Ludicolo is Ubers viable in multiple generations, in fact, which I think is commendable, setting itself apart from other Swift Swim Pokemon options in Ubers with its unique typing for a Swift Swim Pokemon. Now, beyond Gen 5 Ubers, where Permanent Rain died, Ludicolo stopped being amazing for that, and when it came to Swift Swim Pokemon in OU, it had a tough time competing with Kingdra, who was the far more popular and prominent Swift Swim abuser in that context. But I do think Ludicolo still saw occasional use in OU rain teams here and there. Not nearly as much as Kingdra, but sometimes. And I think it's a Pokemon that really punched above its weight, seeming to be incredibly average, actually having, Ubers respect, OU respect in multiple gens. For a goofy-looking creature like this one, that's worthy of note. Beyond that, though, pretty bad Pokemon. Outclassed by most other Swift Swimmers, and without Swift Swim, it's pretty garbage. But for a moment, Ludicolo had its time in the spotlight. Up next is Abomasnow, once the only hail setter in the game, and for that it had some real merit. Abomasnow always had some issues, of course. Grass-Ice typing, dreadful. Very targetable from many different types. And its stats are pretty average. But setting Hail on the field was reason enough to use it. Hail is a very good anti-meta weather effect, because the Hail does chip damage to everything that is not an Ice type, which is most things. So it kind of ruins every other weather, especially in Gen 5, where that is a more relevant thing to do. Hail stall teams and Hail anti-meta balance teams are genuinely pretty good there in Gen 5 OU. Abomasnow's move pool is alright. It has Blizzard and Giga Drain and Wood Hammer as nice stab options. Ice Shard has always been one of its stronger options too. A priority Ice type attack. It has Leech Seed, which is at least something. It has Earth Power and Earthquake, which are good options. Unfortunately, Abomasnow has now had more competition from Alolan Ninetales, who tends to be a superior Hail setter. Hail was reworked to Snow in Gen 9, and to be honest, Snow is probably the weakest of the weather effects in Gen 9 as well. Even at the best of times, with Alolan Ninetales, you're not seeing many Snow teams. The synergy is limited. At least the Hail chip damage gave former Hail teams a reason to exist. you know, chipping absolutely every other type but ice was pretty valuable, but that no longer exists with the new snow. The defense boost is appreciated, but not enough to be very good, unfortunately. But I think a Bomber Snow is fairly commendable for its early success in being the very first hail setter in the game, which at one point in time was good. Up next is Eldegoss, and I'm giving Eldegoss a fair amount of respect. This Pokemon, I think, has some strong things going for it. Yes, it is another mono grass type defensive utility guy, but Eldegoss has the amazing ability Regenerator, which is one of the strongest abilities in the whole game in singles, restoring 1/3 of your max HP every time you switch out. Eldegoss also has pretty good defensive stats. Its HP is low at base 60, but 90 defense and 120 special defense especially are enough to make up for that, I would say. So you have a pretty good foundation for a Regenerator wall with stats like that, and on top of this, Eldegoss has a great utility move pool. Rapid Spin, always amazing to have, especially on a regen Pokemon, that's pretty rare to see. Sleep Powder, of course, great. Directly inflicts sleep on the opponent. Leech Seed is kind of nice too, and Eldegoss has a decent attacking move pool. You can't go too wrong with Giga Drain. For further utility, there is Aroma Therapy, which is always great to have. Stun Spore, to inflict paralysis perhaps. I think this is a decent Pokemon. It is ranked PU in Gen 8, which is quite low, but I believe it has some usage in higher tiers in Gen 8. And dare I say, if this wins in Gen 9, I could maybe see it being used in OU. Purely for being a regen Pokemon with Rapid Spin and decent other traits, it wouldn't be able to use Sleep Powder. But Stun Spore is something. This would be like a comparable Pokemon to Tangrowth, but with Rapid Spin, where Tangrowth doesn't have that. So I think this Pokemon's decent. It's not in Gen 9, but if it was, I could see it being used actually. Up next is Rotom Mow, who is one of the lesser Rotom forms. Rotom Wash is of course the most popular, and Rotom Heat is close behind, but Rotom Mow, not as popular. You don't get as much out of the Levitate ability as the other Rotoms because you're not even weak to ground. With Electric Grass typing, you're neutral. The other Rotoms are erasing an entire weakness. The Electric Grass typing is also a bit worse than the other typings, more vulnerable to incoming attacks. Grass has a lot of weaknesses that you're attacking on, but at the end of the day, this is still a Rotom, and there is occasional value to being a Grass type, having that nice water resistance and resistance to enemy grass and Stab Leaf Storm. It's a great move. You have all the great move pool options that Rotom usually has with Trick and Will-O-Wisp, which are nice. Rotom Mow is an alright Pokemon, usually a middle tier Pokemon. In Gen 9 it's PU. Definitely worse than the other Rotom forms, but still a Rotom form nonetheless, and that carries with it a certain level of prestige and technological prowess. Up next is Torterra. Torterra is known as one of the worst starters, and for a long time that was certainly true. Torterra has the terrible grass ground typing, which may carry with it some advantages, but overall leaves you wide open to ice type attacks, one of the most common types in the game, and that's a big problem. But in Gen 9, Torterra was actually buffed pretty significantly. Torterra was granted a beautiful new option of Shell Smash, and this made a pretty massive difference, pushing Torterra up to the RU tier in Gen 9, which is quite a big deal. RU in Gen 9 is actually a high power level tier, all things considered. Gen 9, a powerful gen in general. Shell Smash is one of the strongest boosting moves in the game, perhaps the strongest actually. It grants an immediate +2 attack, special attack, and speed at the small cost of -1 to defense and special defense. Of all boosts in the game, this has the most immediate impact. In a single turn, you're already probably outrunning everything and threatening them lethally. Torterra can leverage this Shell Smash boost for incredible gains with Stab Headlong Rush, which is a powerful attack, and using the new Gen 9 item Loaded Dice to increase the minimum hit rate of multi-hit moves to 4 times. You can then use Bullet Seed for a pretty incredible damage output, and Rock Blast, and this is kind of an outstanding set of offensive coverage. Ground, grass, and rock. That's quite commendable. This is overall, I think, a well-received buff. Torterra needed something new to redefine it, and this certainly did it. It may not have pushed it to OU viability in Gen 9, but that's a tough thing to ask for. As I said, Gen 9's a powerful gen. Torterra would be complete garbage without this buff, I think, in Gen 9. So it's appreciated and it's enhanced the turtle greatly. Up next is Iron Leaves, who is a robotic version of Virizion. This one is a grass psychic type, which is a worse typing than Virizion's grass fighting. But it is quite different. It is a physical attacker now with 130 base attack. Not as bulky as Virizion, but far more offensively threatening. Iron Leaves has Quark Drive, like all of the other future Paradox Pokemon, giving it access to the Booster Energy item, which is very good, and you also have the signature move Psy Blade, which is an 80 power psychic type physical attack that has 1.5x power in electric terrain, which is interesting. An electric terrain synergy on a psychic move, which also, I suppose, goes with Quark Drive. Unfortunately for Iron Leaves, there's no good electric terrain setter in this game, but it just uses it for Psychic Stab anyway. You got Close Combat for coverage and Leaf Blade. All things considered, though, this is one of the worst of the future Paradox Pokemon. It's ranked RUBL in Gen 9, which means it's only legal in UU. That's decent, but compared to many of its future Paradox brothers, it's rather underwhelming. I also must say that this might be the most boring of all of the future Paradox Pokemon. I mean, I've been critical of Iron Jugulus, and I do hate Iron Jugulus very much, but Iron Leaves is just kind of nothing to me. I don't even think about him. I don't even remember him unless I do a grass ranking and I have to sort through all the grass types, and then I remember, oh yeah, you exist, Iron Leaves. That's cool. I have little more to say about Iron Leaves, and there's a good chance I'll never speak about him or think about him ever again. And I'm quite alright with that, and that doesn't really bother me. I don't really care. That's fine. In fact, I'd be glad if the mental space that Iron Leaves is taking up in my brain, which has limited real estate, I would like if that was be freed up and replaced with something good, like, I don't know, a Chinese ancient proverb or something that provides me with wisdom. Take up the space that is spent in my brain where Iron Leaves, the future Paradox form of Virizion, is stored, and replace it with something good. Like a quote from Shakespeare, I don't know, something that isn't this would be preferred. Up next is Mega Sceptile. Sceptile's Mega Evolution turns it into a dragon. Grass Dragon is a better typing than just Mono Grass. It does introduce a ×4 ice weakness, but you get many more resistances to speak of, and that's valued. You're also neutral to fire now. I think it comes with more pros than cons, this new typing. And Mega Sceptile is incredibly fast, with 145 speed, and it can leverage that speed for pretty incredible offensive power with 145 special attack. Mega Sceptile can be used as a nice fast special attacker with a typing that gives it a decent amount of defensive value too. Mega Sceptile has such options as Leaf Storm for stab, Dragon Pulse for stab. Earthquake is actually kind of good with a mixed attacking stat of 110 base attack, and the ability to hit Heatran in OU, which is nice with a Pokemon of your typing. And then Hidden Power Fire was a common option here to hit Ferrothorn and other things. You could also go with Focus Blast if you prefer, as fighting coverage, but Hidden Power Fire is more accurate. Unfortunately, Mega Sceptile's ability isn't the greatest choice. It has a Lightning Rod, which is better than nothing. Grants electric immunity and a +1 special attack boost if struck by an electric move. Often a good ability, but feels like a waste on this Pokemon that is already ×4 resistant to electric. Would have probably preferred something else that enhances it further, but I mean, I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth, so that's alright. At least it does something. That's more than can be said for some Megas, who have completely useless abilities. Mega Sceptile is not the most amazing Mega. It is OU viable in Gen 6, but it's not ranked OU. It's RU in Gen 7. Can be used in the higher tiers, but it's generally more niche. Still, an improvement over base Sceptile, a decently worthwhile Mega if you're going to choose one. And with the typing and stats and interesting offensive toolkit, there is reasons to use this, and it's undeniably pretty good. Not the greatest Mega, but not the worst either. Up next is Hisuian Lilligant, a new regional form of Lilligant from Pokemon Legends Arceus, available for the first time in Gen 9. This has a grass fighting typing. It is a physical attacker rather than Lilligant, who is a special attacker. Hisuian Lilligant has a few things going for it. It has the ability Chlorophyll, which is always nice. Double speed in the sun. Hisuian Lilligant also has the move Victory Dance, which is like Quiver Dance, but physical. Raises attack, defense, and speed by 1 stage each. In theory, one of the strongest boosts we've ever seen, and exclusive to Hisuian Lilligant. No one else gets this, so that's really good. The bad part about Hisuian Lilligant, though, is that its stats are not that amazing for Gen 9 standards. It has 105 attack, 105 speed, but everything else about it is enough to earn an respectable RUBL position in Gen 9, which is not so bad. And sometimes Hisuian Lilligant can punch above its weight and be used in the higher tiers than that, including OU. When it comes to Chlorophyll Pokemon, this is a considerable choice because of its Stab Solar Blade and also the fact that it is a grass fighting type, meaning it is resistant to Sucker Punch and also resistant to Raging Bolt's Thunderclap, and with those traits it can be a bit sturdier against some of the common priority options used in Gen 9 OU. Actually ends up having a decent matchup against King Gambit as a result of that, with Sucker Punch resistance and the Stab Close Combat. And it's just fast and hits very hard with high power attacks that do make up for its sort of below average attack for Gen 9. Triple Axle also pretty cool as a ice coverage option to hit such fellas as a Gliscor. Pretty good Pokemon, all things considered. Not OU level in Gen 9, but given the circumstances, it's doing pretty well for itself, I'd say. Up next is Roserade. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, am I right, folks? Roserade has a decent competitive career. It is a strong Pokemon in OU in its debut game of Gen 4, where its solid speed stat of 90, good special attack of 125, and access to Sleep Powder and Spikes and a good series of special attacks were a decent recipe for success. Roserade also gets used in Gen 4 just as a bulky Pokemon with its typing and spikes and toxic spikes. It can get by with just that. In fact, Gen 4 recently banned Sleep, and you'd think that'd be a huge nerf to Roserade, which it sort of was, but Roserade is still seeing use despite its lost tool of Sleep Powder in that context. So that speaks to the fundamental strengths the Pokemon does have. Beyond Gen 4, Roserade never quite reached those same OU heights, but it never fell down to the depths of ZU either. Roserade maintained a solid position in the mid-tiers, sometimes punching above its weight in tiers like UU, which is pretty cool. Roserade has Technician as well, to boost the power of moves 60 power or less, which can be used with Hidden Power in Gen 7 for a boosted Hidden Power, which is actually quite good. Can be any type you want. Hidden Power Fire, usually the choice option. Overall, a decent Pokemon with much to offer. It has utility in the form of Spikes and Stun Spore and Sleep Powder. It's got a pretty solid offensive move pool, and it's reasonably bulky with a decent special defense and that solid Grass Poison typing. Not an amazing Pokemon by modern standards or anything, but a reasonably respectable one with a decent career. Up next is Zarude, who is ranked UU in Gen 8, UUBL in Gen 9. Zarude doesn't look that good, but it's more solid than it looks. 105 in HP, defense, and speed is quite strong, especially the speed, that's above average. 120 attack is a good attack stat, and Zarude is a dark grass type. They can work pretty well as a Swords Dance sweeper, especially utilizing Terastallization to enhance its defensive profile in Gen 9. It has Stab, Knockoff, and Power Whip, which are quite strong. It also has the signature move of Jungle Healing. The powerful ancient technique of Jungle Healing has many benefits. This will heal you for 25% and then cure your status. It's like Refresh, but with a little heal attached. And Refresh is actually gone from the game in Gen 9, so having the same move as Refresh but better does have its value. It's actually a pretty cool option here, Jungle Healing. Zarude does have Leaf Guard as its ability as well, which is not the best ability. It just grants status immunity in the sun specifically, but you can run Zarude on sun teams and just have this as an added bonus. You don't super need it to get value out of Zarude, but it's a nice additional benefit, since sun is worth running anyway and it's very good. I always viewed this Pokemon as very average, but in practice it's much better than it seems. It's well-rounded in bulk speed and offensive power. It's got a good stab combination. The jungle healing comes up, and even though its ability is fairly useless, all of that is a decent package. Even though it's not OU ranked, it's got some viability in OU, and it's better than it looks. Up next is Venusaur. I might be ranking Venusaur a bit higher than it deserves. It's not that great in modern times, but for a long time this was the chlorophyll Pokemon. Ever since it got chlorophyll in Gen 9, it quickly became the most popular user of it. Chlorophyll, of course, grants double speed in the sun, and Venusaur, with its solid stats and great options to take advantage of chlorophyll with, and the nice grass poison typing, became a bit of a superstar. In Gen 5 OU, back when chlorophyll was still legal, Venusaur made sun teams extremely formidable. It's usable in Gen 5 OU as well. It has sleep powder alongside chlorophyll, it has solar beam, sludge bomb, earth power. In later gens it received weather ball for even further sun synergy. I think I'd give Venusaur respect for being the elite sun abuser for many years. Even though it's not that great anymore, with more powerful sun abusers existing. Up next is Chestnut, and I'm ranking Chestnut pretty damn high here. This is a bit controversial, but I actually think Chestnut is a little underrated, at least ever since it has received Body Press in Gen 9. I think that was a massive buff, and Chestnut is actually quite good as a result of that. Chestnut is the grass-type starter of Gen 6. It has a grass-fighting type combination, and a defensive-leaning stat spread. It has a great defense stat of 122, 88 HP, 107 attack is alright too, the rest of its stats are average, but the defense and HP are very nice. Chestnut has the ability Bulletproof, which I think is a great ability, granting an immunity to bullet moves including Shadow Ball, Bullet Seed, Sludge Bomb, Focus Blast. A lot of these moves are common, and being able to pivot into them, especially Shadow Ball and Sludge Bomb, is a big deal. And Chestnut has access to Synthesis, which is a good healing move in Gen 9. It's as good as Recover and such now that they're all nerfed to 8 PP. A solid healing move, Spikes, is valued. Very strong utility option. Body Press. Formerly, Chestnut didn't have this, but the addition of Body Press to its moveset I think is a huge buff that allows it to leverage that high defense for a significant damage output. And Knockoff is never bad. Item removal, dark coverage. Chestnut was used on a Gen 9 OU team that hit #1 in the world, and I actually tried the team and I found it far better than I ever imagined. Chestnut is really good into all the Shadow Ball and Sludge Bomb users. It's good into King Gambit. It's good into Great Tusk. It actually walls a bunch of the key physical threats of the format. You can get a lot out of Rocky Helmet. You can really get a lot out of Body Press, and you can leverage your defensive switch-ins for incredible gain with Knockoff and Spikes, which both achieve incredible value in a single turn. I don't know if I'm crazy, but I think this is a strong Pokemon that is a bit overlooked. That's my opinion. Up next is Hydrapple, who happens to be one of my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon. Love the visual design of a dragon emerging from an apple. This whole Applin family I think is quite incredible. I'm glad they just keep giving new evolutions to the Applin line, because they're all awesome, and I appreciate it. But out of all of them, Hydrapple is the most competitively successful. This is another grass dragon type, but these stats are considerably higher here, with a very well-rounded 106 HP, 110 defense, 120 special attack, and 80 special defense. Only 44 speed, but with that bulk and high special attack, you can't complain. Hydrapple has Regenerator, which is fantastic. One of the strongest abilities in singles, healing a third of your max HP every time you switch. Beautiful. And Hydrapple is more offensively threatening than many other regen Pokemon. It's got this great mix of offense and defense thanks to this ability. It can be a nasty plot sweeper, and it has a pretty strong move pool with such options as Earth Power, Giga Drain, and the unique move Fickle Beam, which is exclusive to it. Fickle Beam has 80 power and a 30% chance to hit with double power. Pretty cool wall breaking tool. The more you spam it, the more you will eventually increase the chance of that double damage coming into effect. I quite like this effect. Yes, Hydrapple does suffer from its ×4 ice weakness. There are more consistent regen Pokemon in the game, like Alomomola and Galarian Slowking, but Hydrapple has its place. It's ranked UU in Gen 9, has solid OU viability, and does set itself apart from other similar Pokemon. Very cool guy, in my opinion. Up next is Celebi, and I'm giving this a bit of a legacy rank here. Celebi came out in Gen 2 where it was a powerful legendary for the time. It was ranked Ubers, and it was excellent. Gen 2 was the only gen where Celebi was Ubers ranked. From then on, it was OU for a few generations. In Gen 3, Celebi is one of the strongest Pokemon in OU, the premier grass type of the format with incredibly customizable traits. Celebi has 100 in all of its stats, making it usable offensively, defensively, and either as a physical or special attacker as well. Celebi has a lot to do in Gen 3 OU, many different sets it can run, extremely versatile. It's got Recovery, Calm Mindsets, Baton Pass, Leech Seed, Perish Song, all sorts of things. In Gen 4, Celebi remained ranked OU, but it struggled in this gen, not nearly as good as it was in Gen 3 as a result of U-Turn being added to the game, the physical special split, introducing more options that threaten Celebi. It's still pretty good. It has some new options like Stealth Rock and Earth Power. It itself got U-Turn as well. And Celebi's also good in Gen 5 OU. I think it's quite strong in this generation. It matches up well against all of the rain threats with its water resistance. It appreciates having Natural Cure to heal its status on Switch Out when there's so many Scald Burns happening in Gen 5, and it's a great check to such threats as Keldeo and Tentacruel. Good Pokemon Celebi in Gen 5. So I think that early legacy is quite strong, but from Gen 6 onwards, cracks started to form, and the Psychic Grass typing got way too bad. Dark weakness and Ghost weakness and Bug weakness and Fire and Ice weakness, all just such bad weaknesses to have. Celebi's role as a defensive Pokemon started to become a little bit antiquated as more powerful defensive Pokemon were added. And it started to suffer from the same problem Shaymin suffered from. It was a very similar Pokemon, also a grass type with Natural Cure. 100 stats across the board just doesn't lend itself that well to offensive sets either. And so Celebi has been less good recently, but its most recent rank was RU in Gen 8, which I think is alright considering. It's not that terrible. And when you factor in its prior legacy and its excellence in the early gens, I would give Celebi a respectable position on this list here. In Gen 9, I think it might actually be ranked ZU, I don't know. Maybe Celebi would still have some stuff to do in Gen 9 to not be as bad as ZU, but certainly a shell of its former self. We can unanimously agree on that. Up next is Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu was pretty good in Gen 7 OU. It was a grassy terrain setter with a grass fairy typing. Pretty good stats. It has 130 attack, which is strong. Its speed is average at only 75, but it's a decent, bulky wall breaker. It's more than decent, I would say, in Gen 7. It's quite good, in fact. Probably the worst of the Tapus, but still quite good. Grassy terrain certainly has its merit. Powering up grass-type attacks, providing the whole field with chip heal, and doing some other things like activating the Grassy Seed, nerfing Earthquake's damage, and such. Unfortunately, Tapu Bulu really fell off in Gen 8 when Rillaboom was added to the game, who is a new grassy terrain setter that was just superior to Tapu Bulu in every way, unfortunately. Tapu Bulu had limited use when Rillaboom came out, and was already probably the weakest of the Tapus, and that kind of pushed it out of the conversation. But still a strong Pokemon, fundamentally. Much going for it. Grass Fairy typing has the ×4 poison weak shortcoming, but that's a coverable weakness. The Fairy typing brings with it some positive defensive traits, and it's a good Pokemon. Up next is Ogerpon Cornerstone Mask. The worst of the Ogerpon forms with a UUBL rank, but still usable and still valued. Ogerpon Cornerstone Mask has a Grass Rock typing. It has the ability Sturdy to grant it a safety net against a one-hit KO if it's at full HP. Ivy Cudgel is Ogerpon's move that changes type based on its mask, and with this mask it will become a 100 power, 100% accurate rock type attack, which is really good, actually. A lot of Pokemon would love to have a move like this in their arsenal. Ogerpon Cornerstone can say that it has one of the strongest rock-type attacks in the game. Ogerpon itself has the same stats no matter the mask it's wearing, with a physically attacking geared stat spread with 120 base attack and 110 speed. The other thing about Ogerpon is that its Terra type is locked. It can only be Terra Rock for Ogerpon Cornerstone, and each Ogerpon has a preset Terra type that they cannot change. Also, it has a Terra ability where it will gain a defense boost once it terrestrializes rock. Of all the Terra boosts, the defense boost on Ogerpon Cornerstone is probably the weakest. It doesn't really get a huge amount out of the defense boost. It's better than nothing. Probably has some application in living incoming hits. But you would probably rather an attack boost on a physical attacker like this, of course. Still, sometimes useful just for the bonus damage on Ivy Cudgel, to be honest. That still can be quite strong, can't it? Up next is Amoonguss, who is a weird Pokemon to evaluate, I think, because Amoonguss has had incredible highs. It has had incredible peaks in its career, but at the moment it's not very good. Amoonguss is a grass poison type, one of many, but Amoonguss is among the best ever. Amoonguss has the ability Regenerator, which is outstanding, of course. It's one of the most classic Regenerator users of all of competitive singles. With this fantastic form of healing, its defensive worries are able to be covered. Amoonguss has decent bulk with 114 HP. Its stats aren't the best, but the HP does heavy lifting and the Regenerator ability does heavy lifting. And Amoonguss also has the ability to inflict direct sleep with Spore with perfect 100% accuracy. To be a decently bulky Regenerator user with Spore is incredibly valuable. This has given Amoonguss plenty of OU viability in multiple generations. Now the downside of Amoonguss is that its move pool is kind of limited beyond that. It's kind of scraping for options. It does have Stun Spore, which is inaccurate, but still high impact and can inflict paralysis. It's got Sludge Bomb, which can find poison chance and help you threaten fairy types and just do decent damage to things. Giga Drain is appreciated. In generations where Hidden Power exists, Hidden Power Fire is really nice so that you can do solid damage to Ferrothorn and Mega Scizor and people like that. Clear Smog is also good for resetting stat stage changes. But in Gen 9, Amoonguss really stinks because they banned Sleep, so without Spore, it's pretty useless. Funnily enough, Amoonguss can also get by in Gen 5 without Spore. They've also banned Spore in Gen 5, but you do see Amoonguss sometimes. It's not that amazing, though, in Gen 5. It's occasionally seen for its defensive profile, and it's good matchup against Rain and Paralysis spreading and such. In Gen 9, it's not so lucky. It was already actually struggling a bit in Gen 9 with its poor matchup into Goldingo and the lack of hidden power. The sleep ban was really just a nail in the coffin. But I would give Amoonguss a high ranking here. I think fundamentally very strong Pokemon. One of the most elite defensive abilities, decent bulk, and Spore is just a recipe for success in my opinion. It may not be OU in every generation, but I still think Amoonguss is just a solid and pretty consistently good Pokemon. Up next is Tangrowth. I think Tangrowth is a very good Pokemon. It's a monograss type with Regenerator and fantastic bulk. 100 HP, 125 defense. Its special defense is low, but it can supplement that with the Assault Vest item to grant 1.5x special defense, but with the drawback of only allowing it to use damaging moves. Assault Vest Tangrowth is very good in my opinion. It certainly helps that Tangrowth's offensive stats are both solid as well. 100 attack and 110 base special attack. Tangrowth has a solid move pool. Knockoff is the superstar here. The utility attack that can work with Assault Vest, but you also have Leaf Storm for big damage, Earthquake, which is ever valuable physical coverage. It hits a lot of important things. You can also run a Rocky Helmet on Tangrowth instead, and utilize its utility move pool with such options as Sleep Powder. Tangrowth is OU ranked in multiple generations. It doesn't exist in Gen 9, but I think if it did, it would be good. A very strong, well-rounded defensive Pokemon with the fantastic regen ability and some of the strongest bulk of any regen Pokemon ever. Up next is Sinistcha, the Matcha Pokemon. I think this Pokemon's really cool. And even though it's ranked UU in Gen 9, you actually see it in OU quite often. And it tends to be really good when you do see it. It's a strong Pokemon. Sinistcha has a Grass Ghost typing. It's a typing that's come up a lot in this video, and Sinistcha might just be the best Grass Ghost type ever, unless I'm forgetting one. Am I forgetting one? I don't think so. I don't think it's that controversial to call this the best of them. Sinistcha has okay stats, defensively speaking. It's got 71 HP, 106 defense, and 80 special defense. The high physical defense is the star of the show there. Sinistcha has a good 121 special attack and a decent 70 speed. These stats are average by Gen 9 standards, but Sinistcha's other traits make up for the stats, I would say. The typing is good, of course, defensively. The ability Heatproof is also very nice here. Heatproof reduces the damage of fire-type attacks against you, pretty much erasing your fire weakness, which is huge on a grass type, erasing an entire weakness. You also take less burn damage. You take half the amount of burn damage, which may actually be relevant and save you. Sinistcha also has Strength Sap, and is probably the best Strength Sap user in Gen 9. Amazing and very coveted utility move that we've talked about a few times in this video, that is actually sometimes enough to push a bad Pokemon into viability just because they have Strength Sap. And Sinistcha is a fine Pokemon. So with Strength Sap, you have a great enhancement to an already solid Pokemon here. Sinistcha also has the signature move Matcha Gotcha, which is a great attack. It's an 80 power grass-type special attack with a 90 accuracy that has a 20% chance to burn, and also has a draining effect like Giga Drain, recovering 50% of the damage dealt. So you can heal yourself and drain enemy health with this. It has higher power than Giga Drain, and you can spread a burn with it. How incredible is that? Sinistcha is a strong Pokemon. It's good against such enemies as Great Tusk, general ground types. This Pokemon walls a lot of things. It's a spin blocker, a rapid spin blocker, which is ever valuable. And it can even be a Calm Mind win condition in Gen 9 OU. I think this Pokemon's very good. In fact, one of the more solid options for a ghost type outside of just the standard Goldengo. Sinistcha will serve you pretty well. Every time I've used it in Gen 9 OU, I've been very impressed. I wouldn't be surprised if this eventually shifts up to OU tier, to be honest. I could see that happening. I find it to be a consistent and powerful Pokemon in Gen 9 OU. Up next is Meowscarada, Grass-type starter of Gen 9, and overall solid new Pokemon. This is a Grass Dark type with a high speed stat of 123, a solid attack stat of 110, and the ability Protean, borrowed from Greninja. Protean is not as powerful as it used to be. It's been nerfed in Gen 9, but it's still a good ability. When you use an attack, you will change into the type of that attack once per switch in. It is not every single time you use an attack now. It just works once, then you have to switch out and back in to do it again. But that's still powerful, especially with U-turn, which pivots you out anyway. That's always a good synergy. Meowscarada has a pretty great move pool too. It's got Knockoff for high damage and item removal. It's got Flower Trick, which is a signature move that is 70 power, but always crits, and has infinite accuracy. A very strong move that can power through defensive boosts thanks to the critical hit. Meowscarada also has Triple Axle, which is beautiful complementary coverage to hit Gliscor and such. An Ice-type multi-hit move. And we already mentioned U-turn, but U-turn is beautiful to have on a fast pivot like this, as you not only get that beautiful Protean synergy that it automatically resets the ability, but also keep up offensive momentum. Meowscarada is certainly OU viable and a strong Pokemon. It's not quite OU ranked. It does suffer from things like a bad matchup into Moltres, maybe some slightly lacking firepower. 110 attack is good, but there are harder hitting fast threats. It's sort of similar to Cinderace, who is another fast Pokemon with a Protean equivalent ability. Cinderace tends to be a little bit stronger with its higher power Pyro Ball and the useful Will-O-Wisp and Court Change for utility. But Meowscarada is still good, and still pretty commonly seen, still quite strong. Up next we have Ogerpon Teal Mask, which is the base form of Ogerpon. This form is able to carry a normal item. It doesn't need a special mask item to transform into itself. This is the base form. It's a mono grass type with the same stats as the other Ogerpon forms. And the flexibility to actually run an item is part of the reason this one is so good. With the Choice Band, your damage output is pretty incredible with your Grass-type Ivy Cudgel and your other powerful coverage. Base form Ogerpon also has the ability Defiant, which is a very strong ability. It grants a +2 attack boost if you have a stat lowered. So it's basically insurance against Intimidate, because if they lower your attack by 1, it gets raised by 2, and you end up with more attack than you started with. If something clicks Defog, they also lower your evasiveness, proccing Defiant. That's another way to proc Defiant. Sticky Web will activate this. Various things will activate this. And another thing that's great about Ogerpon's base Teal Mask form is that when it terastallizes, it has to Terra Grass, but when it Terras Grass, it will gain a speed boost. This might actually be the best of all the stat boosts you can receive from Ogerpon's terastallization effects, because with a speed boost, you can clean up games with this Pokemon. Ivy Cudgel does far more damage with the bonus Grass Stab. You have other great coverage, and 110 is a formidable speed to begin with. With a +1 speed on top, you can outrun many Choice Scarf Pokemon in a pinch. You just get that little bit more out of terastallizing, which is fantastic. Ogerpon Teal Mask has actually risen up to OU rank in Gen 9 recently, which is very respectable. People are realizing this Pokemon is far better than they initially thought. I certainly think it's a strong choice. Up next is Breloom, another legacy rank here. Breloom is not this good in Gen 9, but I think Breloom deserves respect for its excellence in multiple generations in a row in the past. Breloom came out in Gen 3, where its claim to fame was being pretty fast and having Spore. 70 speed with Spore is actually quite significant. 70 speed usually not that fast, but with Spore, just being able to put something to sleep off the back of a half-decent speed stat is incredibly significant. In Gen 3, Breloom can leverage the free turn it gains from Spore to shoot off a Focus Punch. The momentum gain from Spore is fantastic in general. This combination of a powerful sleep-inflicting move and a strong offensive attacker with 130 base attack was just a great combo. In Gen 4, Breloom got even better when they gave it the new ability Poison Heal, and it gained so many new options from the physical special split, as well as just gaining new moveset options in general. It gained Superpower and Seed Bomb and other things that are outstanding. In fact, Breloom was so strong in Gen 4 that they recently banned Sleep in Gen 4 as well, as a result of how good Breloom was there. Amazingly, Breloom is still viable in Gen 4 without Sleep off the back of the high attack and Poison Heal, which is one of the strongest abilities in the game. In Gen 5, Breloom is still OU, and this is also somewhere where Sleep is banned. So part of Breloom's appeal is Sleep, but part of it is also the high attack of the Pokemon, and also an ability it received in Gen 5, Technician. With Technician, Breloom's breaking power was greatly enhanced. Technician grants moves with 60 power or less 1.5x power. Breloom could utilize this alongside with Bullet Seed, where each individual hit receives a power boost, and also Mach Punch. Force Palm, which is a fighting move with a paralysis chance on it. And in Gen 7 and 8, Breloom has access to Spore. Sleep is not banned in these generations, and it also has Technician and this fantastic move pool of Priority boosted by Technician and Bullet Seed boosted by Technician, and all of these incredible things. Breloom was strong in OU from its inception in Gen 3 all the way up until Gen 8. It's only in Gen 9 where they have once again banned Sleep, and the Sleep ban alongside a general power creep has pushed Breloom further down the rankings. But I think Breloom can certainly be given serious accolades for its strong career overall as one of the premier sleep-inflicting Pokemon ever, and a sleep-inflicting Pokemon that actually can utilize the sleep for an incredible offensive advantage with its high attack and incredible physical attacking tools. Up next is Superior. Superior is a Grass-type starter with the insane combination of Contrary, which inverts stat stage changes, and Leaf Storm, which is a Grass-type special attack that usually lowers special attack by 2, but with Contrary will raise special attack. This simple combo made Superior an OU superstar in Gens 6 and 7. Even though its special attack is not that high, the sheer value of Leaf Storm and the high speed and well-rounded stats elsewhere with decent bulk made Superior amazing. Superior has this incredible Leaf Storm nuke, but it also has utility as Defog to remove hazards, Glare to spread paralysis. This is one of its best tools actually, because Glare is a paralysis inflicting move that can hit ground types, which is very strong. Superior would commonly run Hidden Power in these generations, Ice or Fire for complementary coverage. Superior did not exist in Gen 8, and in Gen 9 it's having a tough time with its lack of hidden power, Terra Blast recently being banned too, and also, I believe it also lost Defog. Let me double check that so I don't look like a fool. Yes, it did lose Defog along with many other Pokemon. So unfortunately Superior is quite a bit worse in Gen 9, still RUBL ranked though, and I would give it credit for its high peaks in Gen 6 and 7, which were high power formats of their own, and Superior had an incredible role in those formats. Very powerful Pokemon at the peak of its career. Up next is Mega Venusaur, one of the better Mega starters. This Pokemon was strong in Gen 6 and 7 OU. It's a pretty straightforward Pokemon. When it Mega Evolves, it gains the ability Thick Fat to reduce incoming fire and ice damage. Amazing on a Pokemon that's usually weak to those two types. You basically erase two weaknesses, and Venusaur just gets an incredibly well-rounded increase to its stats as well. Its bulk is enhanced up to 123 Phys defense and 120 special defense. Its special attack is enhanced up to a nice 122, and it even has a good attack stat of 100 now. With a good defensive ability and these nice solid stats everywhere, Venusaur Mega is a strong defensive attacker. Does respectable damage with Sludge Bomb and Hidden Power Fire. It sits there and heals with Synthesis and Leech Seed, and it's pretty damn incredible actually. It's immune to Toxic, it's Grass Poison, which is a good defensive typing on its own, but without Fire and Ice weakness it's even better. So the result is just this incredible defensive blob that sits there, heals, spreads Leech Seed, and actually hits respectably hard too with a strong base special attack stat. It's not doing anything too flashy, but it's just a strong, well-rounded Pokemon. Up next is Rillaboom. Rillaboom came out in Gen 8, where it replaced Tapu Bulu as the new premier grassy terrain setter. This monograss type with Grassy Surge is outstanding. It has a very good attack stat of 125, a decent HP of 100, usable defensive stats, and an okay 85 base speed too. Well-rounded stats. And what makes it better than Tapu Bulu, I think, is its access to a few key options. Grassy Glide is the big one. This was even stronger in Gen 8, but even in Gen 9, it's still good. In Gen 9, it has 55 power and has priority while Grassy Terrain is active. And of course, you set Grassy Terrain yourself, so easy to activate that synergy. Rillaboom also has Knock Off, which Tapu Bulu does not have, an ever-valuable physical option and item removal effect. Rillaboom also has U-Turn, providing momentum. And even though Grass Fairy can be a better typing in some areas, Monograss does shield Rillaboom from those frightening times for super effective poison type attacks. Rillaboom is a great enabler. A lot of Pokemon love grassy terrain. You can consume the Grassy Seed for Unburden combos. And Rillaboom itself is a pretty strong, well-rounded attacker with priority and item removal and hard-hitting wood hammer stab and all sorts of advantages. A Choice Band set does quite well. It's a pretty damn effective Choice Band breaker. Just an all-around really strong, really solid and consistent competitive Pokemon. Up next, Ogerpon Wellspring. Ogerpon Wellspring is the strongest Ogerpon form that is legal in OU and a central Pokemon in the OU format right now. Ogerpon Wellspring has the Water Grass typing, and its Ivy Cudgel becomes a Water type. Can't go too wrong with a big Water type hammer with a high crit rate. Ivy Cudgel also does not make physical contact, which is kind of incredible, as you can completely bypass effects like Flame Body, Iron Barbs, Rocky Helmet, etc. Many of the things that punish other physical attackers, Ogerpon Wellspring is not worried about. On top of this, the typing is good, defensively speaking, but you also have Water Absorb for complete water immunity. And this is actually more significant than you would think. Water immunity on a water grass type doesn't seem amazing, you already resist water, but this means you're immune to Scald. Without this, you would actually be vulnerable to Scald burns from Alomomola. You wouldn't be able to switch against Alomomola at all, but now you can switch against it and in fact totally abuse it for momentum. They also can't use Flip Turn safely against you to pivot out, because it will just be cancelled by Water Absorb. It will even heal you for your trouble. There's other times this can come in handy as well, against a Hydro Steam from Walking Wake, various other water type attacks in the format. Many water types exist. This is key, actually. The Scald immunity is so huge. Ogerpon Wellspring has Spikes and U-Turn and Swords Dance sets and Play Rough for the dragons and Knockoff. Just a truly outstanding physical attacker. It also helps that the Wellspring Mask is actually just a really good item, to be honest. Just granting a solid 1.2x power boost. Even though you can't choose an item, the item you're forced to choose is quite good and simply offers a straightforward power boost, no matter who you are. You are forced to Terra Water with your Embody Aspect thing, and when you do Terra Water, you gain a special defense boost. Probably not as relevant as an attack or speed boost, but still appreciated, and you do sometimes Terra Water for the Ivy Cudgel damage on that. Overall, just an amazing Pokemon and a central one in Gen 9 OU right now, and one that a lot of people hate. It's quite centralizing. And the fact that it has Water Absorb really invalidates a lot of things. A lot of things are unviable just because Ogerpon Wellspring destroys them. This is true. This is a true phenomenon. Up next is Kartana, one of the strongest of the Ultra Beasts and a Grass Steel type physical attacking Pokemon. This guy's only available in Gen 7 and 8 OU. But in those generations, this Pokemon is insane. These stats are out of control. Kartana has, most notably of all, a ludicrous 181 base attack. This is an attack stat unfathomable. It's higher than most legendaries. This is higher than Groudon, Koraidon. It's just insane. You're also incredibly fast with 109 speed to take advantage of that attack stat. You also, for some reason, have 131 defense. You just have a huge defense stat on top of this, so you actually can switch in and take hits, even though you're already fast with the highest attack stat ever. So this Pokemon, by sheer brute force, I suppose, is just insane. Also has the Beast Boost ability, which all the Ultra Beasts have, which grants +1 to a higher stat when you earn a KO, and that'll be your attack. So you also can ramp your attack and boost it up. How ludicrous. I guess the one thing keeping Kartana balanced is its fairly limited move pool. I mean, move pool isn't that bad. Honestly, it has Leaf Blade for Grass Stab, Sacred Sword for fighting coverage, it has Knockoff for dark coverage, Smart Strike for Steel Stab if it wants. It doesn't have Earthquake at least. It doesn't have some key options like a rock move. There are things that can wall it in the format. That's the one thing keeping it balanced, I think, is just the limitations of its move pool make it walled by some key things like Celesteela, Zapdos. These fellows can stop Kartana, but still the Pokemon is clearly just incredibly powerful, and it's easy to see why. Some even wanted this guy banned in Gen 7. Didn't end up getting banned. It was manageable, I suppose, but incredibly centralizing Pokemon. Up next is Ogerpon Hearth Flame Mask, the most powerful of all the Ogerpon forms and the only one banned to Uber's tier. This Ogerpon form has a Grass Fire type combination, a scarcely seen type combination, and one of the strongest in the game offensively. And crucially, your Ivy Cudgel becomes Fire type in this form. With a Fire Grass coverage combo boosted by Stab, this is just truly insane. Truly insane. On top of this, you have the ability Mold Breaker to ignore enemy abilities. This might not sound that crazy, but think about it. You can boost up with Swords Dance and completely ignore Unaware. The ability Unaware usually prevents stat stage changes and ignores them, but Mold Breaker bypasses that, meaning you can just Power Whip a Dondozo or Ivy Cudgel through Clodsire or Skeledirge or whoever. I guess Skeledirge would actually stop you. But surely you get coverage for that, actually. Yeah, you just get knock off. You just knock off Skeledirge, of course. So nothing can stand in your way, really. Unaware Pokemon can't stop your sweep. Also, Flash Fire is a common ability used to defeat fire types. Flash Fire would ruin your life, actually, on a Heatran, because they would be immune to Ivy Cudgel and ×4 resistant to Power Whip, but you just totally ignore Flash Fire with Mold Breaker. A Pokemon like this actually usually gets beaten by powerful abilities, but you just ignore the abilities. So isn't that convenient? On top of this, when you Terastallize to Fire, which you have to Terra into, your type is locked to Fire, but when you do, you get an attack boost. You just get a free attack boost, bonus stab damage on your Ivy Cudgel, and goodness gracious, do you hit like a damn truck instantaneously. A very powerful Pokemon for clear reasons. Up next we have Shaymin Sky, a Pokemon that was released in Gen 4, alternate form of Shaymin, and is ranked Ubers in every single generation it exists in. Shaymin Sky is a grass flying type, with a high speed of 127, a strong special attack stat of 120, and the controversial ability Serene Grace to grant a doubled secondary effect chance on all of your moves. Shaymin Sky's claim to fame is its combination of high speed and special attack, Serene Grace, and Air Slash. Air Slash is a flying type special attack with a 30% chance to flinch, boosted to 60% by Serene Grace. So Shaymin Sky here can absolutely spam Air Slash, flinch more often than not flinching, because it's 60%, and with a solid special attack stat of 120, it's hitting pretty hard with these stab Air Slashes, and it can completely cheese games if you give it a Choice Scarf and you outrun everything. You can just air slice through entire teams. Not even contact effects can punish you, like with Ironhead Gyrachi, because air slice was a special attack. There's no real way to stop a flying type special attack, actually. There's no immunities to flying. There's no ways to punish Shaman Sky just clicking this, other than resisting it a lot and hoping not to get flinched. So yeah, this is a crazy combination. This has genuine viability in Gen 4 and 5 Ubers. For the most part, it's not amazing in Ubers. It's pretty weak, and it's a bit of a gimmick, but still far too powerful for OU, of course, and inherently just a crazy Pokemon. A deeply immoral Pokemon, and one that should be ashamed of it himself, but regardless, a Pokemon that exists and is undeniably very powerful. And finally, number 1 on the list, the best Grass-type Pokemon in history. This is actually a very special moment here, because this is the first time in one of these videos that a non-legendary has claimed the top spot for a Grass-type Pokemon, and it's one that's not even ranked Ubers as well. But I actually think that Ferrothorn beats out Shaman Sky as the greatest Grass-type Pokemon of all time. And that might sound stupid, because Ferrothorn is not ranked Uber, but Shaman Sky is, but I think you'll find that Ferrothorn actually outranks Shaman Sky and is more popular than it in pretty much every Ubers generation. Ferrothorn is actually really common in Ubers and is one of the most popular defensive Pokemon there, acting as a formidable defensive answer to things like Kyogre. Ferrothorn is one of the strongest competitive Pokemon in history, in the singles context anyway. It has the Grass-Steel typing, which is actually an amazing type combo, with only 2 weaknesses to fire and fighting, and myriad beautiful resistances and immunities. You mean to powder moves, leech seed, toxic, and resist so many different things. Ferrothorn's stats are great defensively. You have 131 physical defense, 74 HP is workable, and 116 special defense is also really good. You even have 94 attack, which is much higher than Ferrothorn perhaps deserves, considering the excellent bulk. Ferrothorn has the ability Iron Barbs, which punishes enemies for making contact with it. They lose 1/8 of their max HP if they do. A strong ability that racks up chip damage throughout a game. And Ferrothorn just has just about every utility move you could want. It's got spikes. The ever-valuable entry hazard, Stealth Rock as well. It's got Knockoff to remove items, Leech Seed to apply pressure, deal damage over time and heal yourself back. It's got Thunder Wave as well to paralyze opponents, which has a high impact. And you also hit quite hard with Ferrothorn off of your decent attack, so Power Whip tends to be a good choice. Gyro Ball is another one, a Steel type attack that deals damage the slower you are than the target, and Ferrothorn is insanely slow with base 20 speed, so this hits very hard. Ferrothorn for generations has been the premier hazard-setting defensive utility Pokemon. You can chuck it on any team, OU or Ubers, and probably do quite well with it. And that's been since Gen 5. The only reason it's not used in Gen 9 is because they didn't put it in the game. I'm sure if it was in Gen 9 it would still be used, still be central, still be amazing. This is one of those eternally good Pokemon that maybe they didn't put in Gen 9 because they're sick of it being so good. I don't know though, they don't care about singles. So that's probably not the reason. Ferrothorn's not as good in doubles. They probably just didn't put it in for some arbitrary reason, but if they did, it would be top tier as always, and I think it's actually the strongest of all grass types. It's kind of crazy that there's no big box legendary grass type. It's kind of a gap, isn't it? They've never done that. They did Celebi back in Gen 2, who's a mythical. They did Shaman, and they've got, I guess, Arceus Grass and Zarude, but there's nothing on the Kyogre or Koraidon power level for a grass type. Number 1 is Ferrothorn. And honestly, I don't say that to discredit Ferrothorn, because Ferrothorn sincerely outranks a lot of actual box legendaries in Ubers. Ferrothorn, I believe, is higher ranked than Reshiram, and probably Palkia in Gen 8 as well, and some others that I'm not thinking of. It's certainly higher ranked than Lugia. Ferrothorn's literally better than Lugia as a defensive utility Pokemon in Ubers. Genuinely an elite Pokemon, even among the legendaries. And that does it, folks. All of the grass types. Goodness, was that a lot of Pokemon. I'm tired. Forgive me if I perhaps missed some nuance on the lower tier choices. I did get some consultation from Oof, who plays lower tiers and knows about some stuff, but I'm sure there's some blind spots here anyway. There is much complexity in ranking Pokemon. I hope you enjoyed the video regardless and thought it was entertaining and informative And thank you for watching to the end. You have received, as a gift for watching to the end, you have received the Muck Sphere. Thank you for watching.